Folks, hello and welcome to a very special Talking Crit Live. You know who I am. I'm that jackass bartender in the OSR, Eric Tenkar. My once a week work spouse is now twice a week this week. So you better be nice to Mike. Be
I'm ready
gentle.
for it. I'm ready.
Are you ready? You sure you're ready?
Good. Let's do it.
With us,
I,
reason
I,
why.
I just saw you 24. I saw you 24
You
hours ago,
saw
and
me yeah, I know. It's scary.
I'm ready to come back for more. So
We
let's do
have a
it.
very special talking crit because this is the way we could get none other than Luke Gygax himself onto the channel. So yes, your eyes aren't deceiving you. Um, this
Now
is
it's not like
a
we
special
haven't.
episode.
We had Luke last year, but Luke is a busy man. He's got things going on, and he just got through with Gary Con, and he just has stuff going on. So we can't talk to him as much as we'd like to, but we love to have him on once a year just to catch up and see what's going on. And so this is our once a year catch up, Luke. How's it
All
going?
right, yeah. I'm glad to be here. I'm doing well, man. I think we had just an amazing Gary Con. So much, I mean, especially in my mind today, as I just spoke to Julie Kahn at Children's Wisconsin Foundation, let her know that the exact amount that we validated, and I had like 3 people check it and make sure all the money was accounted for and all that stuff for the charity, which is essentially Milwaukee's Children's Hospital. The Gary Con community raised $54,108 for that charity.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was incredible, and the vast bulk of that, like 52,000, was raised in 3 hours. So incredible, incredible generosity. It was. I was blown away. Our previous high had been 30,000, and we didn't double it, but gosh, it wasn't that far away, right? And I was just amazed, and the folks at the Children's Hospital were ecstatic, and they're going to take a portion of that money, and they're going to set it aside for their, I think it's like whatever lifestyle program, whatever they call it, but basically it's to something programs that help the kids enjoy their time when they're in hospital. A lot of them are, you're stuck in a hospital as a kid. That's not cool, right? And seriously ill with life-threatening diseases. So
Right.
we're hoping, well, we're not hoping, we're doing it. We're establishing a D&D program, their role-playing program, where we're going to teach some of their counselors or facilitate, bring in game masters and teach kids, these sick kids, how to play D&D, and knowing that it will really be something that I think will bolster their fortitude and really help them fight this disease. Because having a reason to live, having joy in life, having friends, companions, being able to get outside of yourself is so important, especially when stuff isn't going well in the real world, right? I found that through gaming, and I think many of us have, and so I'm really excited about that prospect.
Oh yeah, I mean, Eric and I have talked about this too, and before the show came on, I said that I blame you and your father. Well, your father mostly. I'm going to blame you too, because I would have done much better in college if I wasn't playing so much D&D. But the social aspect of it was great, because we had a D&D group at the college that would do it. Actually, I've told the story many times. We had a RuneQuest group and a D&D group. It's a small college, and they were competing, and they fought vicious. They had vicious fights over. But I played with the D&D group, and I was very social, and it was great because I was not a social kid in high school. I hung around with the same 7 people all years in high school, and actually we're still friends now, 40 years later. But D&D helped me get out of my shell, and I think Eric kind of has the same story about,
Oh yeah, no, definitely. D&D is what. I mean, I was before. I was considered a shy kid until D&D, and now look at me. I mean, and I'll be honest with you too. As a cop, my best tool was being a gamer, because there were times you had no clue what to do, and you go, "I'll just have to role play being a cop." If I don't have the actual knowledge of what to do, what would I do in a role playing game? In normal times, it's right, or at least close to it. So
you're like, do I use my persuasion or intimidation role? What am I going to do here? Yeah. So no, I mean, honestly, being in the military, you're assuming a role, right? Come on, it's pretty obvious. Okay, there's a hierarchy, a structure, and all that sort of stuff, and you can just, okay, this is my role right now. I'm going to be a tough infantry guy. I'm going to be the leader who's talking. So role playing, you got reps in before you were an adult. that kind of helped you develop some skills. I think that's absolutely true, and I actually attribute it to why I'm more successful in things that I've done is from the time I spent gaming. Sure, I may have gone from valedictorian of my high school to a 3.0 when I went to college, but that's because I went to an all-boys military school, so there was women in college, so that was a distraction, right? So I'm a human being, and I was 17 when I went to college. So, and then of course I played some really good role-playing games, and it wasn't D&D of all things. The dungeon master for the group of guys that I kind of fell in, or game master, played Roll Master, Iron Crown Enterprises Roll Master,
or Chart Master as we called it. Yes.
Yeah, Chart Master, yeah, Rule Master. That was great, and also Space Master. I had
that was fun.
So much fun playing those games with Quentin Bone was the guy's name. Just a great dude. I still have him on Facebook somewhere, but I haven't seen him in decades. I would love it if he came to a Gary Con and I could convince him to run Space Master or Roll Master again. Had a riot, so much fun. I think I made it to level 5 or 6 as my Rune Mage, without ever taking any damage, which is a big deal in Roll Master.
Oh, you don't want to roll on those charts. You do not want to roll on those charts.
Well,
oh my god!
But you got experience points for the damage you took, as if I remember right. I'm going back to the 80s.
Yeah, I believe you're right. And I think 66 was the number you never wanted to roll on the critical chart. It was somewhere shoveled in the middle. That was the horrible result in the middle of generally not too bad stuff. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. The 66 is a tough one, but my this is probably an unpopular person in the party. But my Rune Mage had like a dark summonings kind of a list, so I could pop up like some real crappy demons or whatever. And I also had like a mobility spell list, so I could do like a jump. So I would, if people were coming at me, I would do one of two things. I'd summon some monsters to fight them, and then if I got in trouble, I'd jump behind the other fighters, right? So I would never get hit. However, I also had like a sleep spell. I can't remember if it was called sleep or whatever. So I'd sleep the smaller creatures, and I'd go and dispatch them, right, with my Morning Star. So I couldn't cut their throats, but I just bash their heads in. But I just gave a standard SOP to the Dungeon Master. I rob like 75% of everything that's on them when I kill them, right? So I'd leave something,
right? So
they didn't obvious. It's not obvious, right? I just was like, well, I did throw the spell, so I figured I'd just help myself. So so I got a lot of experience and went up much more rapidly than the rest of the party. They got suspicious, so I think they called me on that. Had a super fun time. That was one of my 2 characters that I played. I also played like a paladin type. So anyway, I played stuff other than D&D. Role playing is awesome, and I love it in general. I play a lot of D&D now, but I am open to playing lots of different types. Call of Cthulhu. I wish I played more of that. That's so much fun.
Oh God!
Yeah, and you've had a big Call of Cthulhu presence at GaryCon, which we're going to roll in and talk about GaryCon here because you had your this is your 15th year, because I think you have as many years as we do. Yeah, you celebrated 2 months before we do, or 3 months before we do, but you have your 15th year at GaryCon. Although you had proto GaryCons before GaryCon, so you really a little bit ahead of us.
Right, there was GaryCon 0. Which was my dad's.
You had like the Lake Geneva days or whatever those were called, when everybody used to just show up in your dad's front yard and hang out.
I didn't organize those. That was actually Trollord Games, because they were working.
Steve.
They were working with my pop. They were working with my pop, and basically he wasn't in great health and he couldn't travel so easily, and so he's like, man, I started Gen Con in Lake Geneva, and now it's gone away. It's like it's hard. So Steve was like, all right, you want a convention in Lake Geneva? I'll do this one. And I think they were 150 to 300 people maybe.
I knew some people had showed up there. I wish I could have thought about doing it. I was back then I was saving all my money to go to Gen Con or Gen Con every year, so I couldn't afford to go up to Lake Geneva and just hang out. But we have a lot to thank Mr. Chenault for, because I just got Memorial Tomb the other day. It's wow. I'm so the guy is just awesome, because he's just here, there, and everywhere in the gaming community helping out. So not only was he at the very beginnings of Gary Con and Lake Geneva Con, but he got your brother's memorial tomb out, and it looks great. I'd bring it over here to show it, but I'm tired of lifting it. The thing is like this big, and it's gigantic. But
that's funny.
Now, Eric, have you got yours yet, Eric, or not?
I got mine early this week, and I've been.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You got yours.
I've gotten like 2 PMs today from people showing me pictures of them opening up their box. I really should just do a post at some point showing everybody's pictures of getting the memorial tomb, because this week I must have gotten at least a half dozen photographs of people with their boxes.
So that's funny how that came into being. So I was doing the Lost City of Gaxmore 5th edition Kickstarter, and so that was just Steve Chenault and I organized a bunch of people to work on that. And of course, I gave my brother. Cut my brother in 50% of whatever I made, just because he was my co-author on the original. But we put together, we gave it a refresh. I wrote some new stuff for it. Lots of the people contributed. And then people were giving us flack because they're like, Ernie's name is on there, but why should I support this Kickstarter? Is it not going to be fulfilled like this one? So I talked to my brother and Ben and Steve, and I was like, guys, we got to get together and make this happen. And that helped facilitate Steve doing the heavy lifting and making sure that it got done. So that was in 2018, and it took until now for them to get it done. And I can't remember how many mailings it's been, but Steve did like yeoman's work. There's been several times where he was like, I was up till 3 a.m. going through this stuff just to try to hit this deadline or whatever. So Steve Chenault is a hero, and he did this. He didn't get paid, guys. He just did this.
Oh no, I figured that.
I know that. Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, listen, my first GaryCon, which I think was 2016, when Zach had to sleep on the floor to give me a bed for my. So
bed. That was my first too. Then it must have been because first or second.
Your brother sought me out and then sat down with me in the hallway outside the vending room, and was like, "Listen, I want to talk to you because people listen to you. People read what you have." He goes, we know we've screwed up so far in getting this project out, but the money is still there. We didn't, I think his quote was, we didn't spend it on hookers and blow. But he was like, the money is here. And he showed me the bank receipts. He goes, the only expenses that have come out of this is related to the project. It was like over $90,000 still left in a business account. And that was something that you honestly don't see with those successful failures.
We spent a whole show talking about that. That's a unicorn. You don't see Kickstarters that are that late that actually still have any money, because Kickstarter's late. It's because all the money's been spent. It's all gone. And so that's just amazing that he was able to keep all the money.
So what I think happened there, and I don't know. I mean, obviously my brother and I don't always see eye to eye on stuff, and but he's still my brother. I still love him and wish him well. But I think what he did is he just jumped in like, this is going to be super awesome. But they had zero business plan. So it was all creative side, zero business plan. And then they were like, oh, crap, what do we do? Oh, we made all these promises for this amazing stuff. But they really did like 4 Kickstarters in one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because you got this mountain of material that's several Kickstarters, right? You
well,
probably paid that amount for several,
Well, if you notice now when people do Kickstarters, they don't have that many add-on levels, because remember, that used to be a huge thing about 10 years ago, is we're going to have all these add-ons when we get to 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, and people just don't do that now because that's so much work. And like you said, why not just break it up into 4 Kickstarters rather than have one Kickstarter with all these add-on levels, and it just gets ridiculous after a while.
It does. It's tough, and the fact I've leafed through the Memorial Tomb because I got a copy as well. Steve, because I was a backer, I backed it, so I got my copies. And it's nice. It's good. It looks like it's good materials. It's dense, man. There's a lot.
Oh my god.
There's a lot of prose in there. But there's a lot of info in there. So. Be ready to read up, man. This is going to take you a while if you're going to run through it.
I backed at the pretty much give me everything level, and so when the box came and I picked it up, I was like, and I'm thinking what, and I didn't know where it came from. And I'm like, what the hell did I order that's so heavy? I was like, what the? And then I think I saw was it Chanel Publishing? I went, oh, wait a second.
You're like, is this it?
This might be it. And I was like, and I'm like, Mike told me how much was in here, and I didn't believe Mike. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
And it's like, holy
No.
shit.
Yeah, I think I got the like minimal, like I just whatever the minimal amount of stuff was,
Yeah.
and I had like 2 pretty thick books in there, softcover books, and like
Mhm.
4 or 5 fold-out maps that were pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not shabby. That's a great
Yeah.
Kickstarter, and that's like $75 or $100
Oh,
for the Kickstarter
easy.
right there.
Well, yeah, Eric and I got the big box, which has all the maps and 3 giant books in it, then
Yeah.
2 giant books. And I believe, Eric, that was the $100 level because I think that's
Right.
what
I got the 4
which for $100. That's
Yeah.
you can't even buy a box set for $100 anymore.
You also get the
much
4
less-
player. I got the 4 player guides.
Dude,
Yeah.
if you get 4 player guides, I mean, just 4 player guides should be $150, or something like that. I mean, it's somewhere in that range. Just it costs a lot to print unless you're printing many thousands of copies.
Right.
It's expensive to print shit, or you have to. Can we swear on, or is that?
Yeah, we can say.
Oh, God.
There's only one word we can't say, and all I'm going to say is it rhymes with bunt. And even when my wife said it, I got demonetized. But not that I care, because like $2 doesn't make a difference. But
Okay. Oh, yes, right. Yeah, I get you. It's like, yeah, never mind. I won't even tell that. Okay, moving on.
You can use whatever language you want. I really.
I don't. Yeah, I try not to do that, but that just kind of slipped out. But yeah, I mean, geez, unless you're gonna print in China and be 4 months planning in advance to deliver your, have everything done and deliver your Kickstarter. I suppose if you write everything in advance, have it all laid out and ready to rock, then kickstart it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can just say, okay, our Kickstarter's done. We need exactly how many we need, and then hey, it's going to deliver in 3-4 months.
Speaking of that too, just to let everybody know, if you're curious about what we're all talking about, and say this sounds cool, Chanel just sent a update to Kickstarter. They have 400 extra copies because you do an X amount on a print run because it makes it cheaper if you do X amount.
Yeah.
So they have 400 copies they're going to put on sale after they get out all the copies to the backers, and he said they're about halfway through. They're about halfway through mailing. So if you're interested in this summer, check out Troller Games. I don't know what he's going to charge for them, but it's worth. I mean, it's worth it, and it's good to support Mr. Chanel because he just really came through on this. So he will have extra copies. There'll be some copies.
He did, yeah. The Trollers are good people. They really are really generous folks. He did a lot of this work for really. I mean, I'm not certain. I wasn't on the deal. It wasn't my deal. But my understanding is it was for very little or nothing that he did the labor. Obviously, the printing and stuff was covered because my brother had kept all that money, right? So the actual cost, but believe me, editing stuff, laying it out, that's a pain in the neck, to say the least. It takes a lot of work, and to get it done right, and then all the project management that goes into that, right? It's a lot. So. Can't say enough good stuff about Steve and the Trolls, and they also give like 50% off to military. So if you're a military gamer, like
Trolls, very cool. Yeah, they're very good with military. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, speaking of
great.
I was going to say segueing. He was at Gary Con this year. It's my segue, and so we had Gary Con this year, and I have to say that because for a couple of years we didn't have Gary Con, which sucked. Yeah. And the last one I went to was the last live one before you came back. So I guess it was 2018, 2019. But Gary Con is back, and I hear you guys kind of blew doors this year. You were amazing. Man, I heard that you had the most people you've ever had there, and it just sounds incredible this year.
We did, and I tell you what, I've always wondered like what size is it gonna not feel like Gary Con, right? Because Gary Con has a very familial, intimate feeling. When you walk in there, it's like you're amongst friends, even if this is the first convention you've been to, and many people have told me that. It's just got a very warm and welcoming attitude. So I knew we'd be bigger this year. I wasn't sure exactly where we'd end up. I thought maybe 2,800, but we actually had like 32 something in badge sales.
Whoa!
100. Well, like 175 were like virtual, right? So just over 3,000 people were at Gary Con. It didn't feel overcrowded to me. Food service was actually quicker than it's been in the past. Because we have tableside service, so if you're gaming, you can just a wait staff will come by and say, hey, do you need something? You order it, and they had like hot carts rolling with them, so they would just be able to say, oh, you want a hamburger? Boom, here you go. or whatever it is, off the short order menu, chicken sandwich, boom, here you go, salad, pow pow, and they got it done. So I thought it was really great. It went tons of games. We had 1,686 events, I think, is memory serves me.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was a ton, and there was no problem getting in games.
That's great, and everybody that I know that went had a great time, and you had quite a Hollywood element to this year's convention. You went way upscale this year, and matter of fact, that might be why you made some money in the auction. Made so much money because I heard that some of the Hollywood types were throwing around big bucks to buy sandals and stuff like that.
So Joe Manganiello has come to GaryCon for a few years, and Joe, as you know, he's an actor, he's a producer, he's a director, he's a writer, and he's a huge D&D fan. So he is the director of a D&D documentary that's for E1, which I think is the Hasbro arm of.
They're selling it though.
Are they? Okay. Yeah.
Back to the founder of E1. So that was announced yesterday. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm woefully out of touch with a lot of that.
I've got too many people sending me information on this constantly. I'm like my own Associated Press.
So Joe's director. He was doing some shooting there, and catching various guests, because what a great place GaryCon has so many guests. It's very cheap to bring your crew there and shoot 12 or 14 people, right? I mean, that's like huge. So he was doing that, and of course, wouldn't it be cool for him to have the sandal of Gygax and be able to travel around to all the spots and be able to show the sandal of Gygax? So
of course.
So he wanted to bid on that, and I kind of knew he was going to bid on it. But the guy who had held on to it over the pandemic, who got it in 2019 and held it through the pandemic, is Chris Pernosky from Titmouse Studios. They do Vox Machina, Adventure Bros, the new Beavis and Butthead. So it's animation studio, huge, and he's come to GaryCon since like 2017 or 2016. He's obviously a huge nerd. He brought the Murder Hobos and a bunch of guys from LA. But he was there. So he's the one who put it in the cask. It has like this like it's a relic, like it's a holy relic. It has like a wooden cask. It's wrapped in chainmail. It's wrapped in fur. It's got another box that it goes in that Jason Azey did several years.
Oh man!
This Gygax came out. It came out of the back of Chip Menard's closet, and he'd lost the other one. He's like, maybe somebody will buy this at GaryCon. But this,
Wait a second. So there's another holy relic out there somewhere. What you're saying? There's another sandal somewhere out there that we don't know where it's at.
I don't think so. I don't think there's any more that existed. So my dad made these sandals as a shoe repairman and a cobbler. He was a cobbler. He made them for the monastery that was near Lake Geneva at the time. So they were and my mom said these are so ugly. It's definitely the monks are doing penance. So she wouldn't wear. She didn't want to wear those sandals. And my sisters, they didn't like. They're ugly sandals. But anyways, that was the last existing sandal, and every year people upgrade it and bring it back, right? So somebody polished it up, then somebody put a form on it, then someone put a box around it, and somebody put a plaque of all the holders, and you etch in who's.
So they're just renting. They're just renting it for the year. They're just renting it, and they're bring
renting
it back.
it for
That's
the year.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
And so Chris P took pictures of him all over the place with this thing. There's pictures with all sorts of stars like Neil deGrasse Tyson, for what is like pictured with the sandal of Gygax. So I mean, he had it for 3 years, and every year he paid. Every year he paid. Hey, here's a donation to charity. Here's a donation to charity. Cool. Every year, even though there was no auction, he's like, here's $1,000. Here's $1,000. Here's $1,000. So every year he did that. It's a great guy. And so Joe was there, and they bid against each other. So I think it went for $5,500. That's how much the sandal of Gygax.
Jeez, oh man, that's nice.
And that's just to rent it for a year. I was surprised that the GaryCon coin, the number one GaryCon coin for the year, went for $4,000.
Oh,
these are the challenge coins that you have every year.
It wasn't gold. It's just it's just a coin.
But there wasn't very many of them. So if you're a collector, I mean, there wasn't a lot the first year.
And that was number one.
It was the number one. There's 100 numbered ones. So there's 100 numbered coins, and I guess I could say it's public knowledge. Mark Greenberg is the guy who did that. So it was very, very generous of him to do that.
Oh.
And, there's a few other folks who are I know they're just bidding on it because they want, they're collectors, sure, but I think they're doing it because they want to support the cause, right? Just amazing, generous people.
Well, it's really cool to see the pictures because, Vince Vaughn was there. For those who know, who's I'm a huge fan of his. I loved it. So Joe's supposed to show up in North Texas this year, which is cool, and because from what he's talked to Gary and what I believe he told Gary is that don't think of me as a actor that games, think of me as a gamer that also acts, which I think is really cool. And he's very, it's true. These guys, it's just really cool to see them because they are into D&D. They aren't coming there because it's like the hot, cool place to be. Okay, look, there's 3,000 people there. It's not the hot, cool place to be. No. It's a Lake Geneva. They're coming there because these guys love the game, and it's just really cool seeing these guys, like the guy from Rage for the Machine. I can't remember his name.
Tom Morello.
Tom Morello. And it's just some other people. It's just really cool to see them there hanging out with the guests and not real like, okay, we're going to have our own little convention over here and you guys do your thing here. And no, they were mixing with all the people and, tons of people got selfies with them. I just think that's really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I got to play in a game Friday. It was a very good game, Beyond Barrier Peak. So it's a guy who's run this for decades. And he just expanded the Barrier Peaks module and did the rest of the levels underneath it and kind of carried on like what if you went exploring underneath the initial Barrier Peaks crashed spaceship. And so I played in that game with Mike Merles, Joe Manganiello, Vince Vaughn, Paul White, who's known as the Big Show in WWE wrestling. Yeah, great guy, really nice guy. Nick Manganiello, Joe's brother. Chris Pronowski from Titmouse Studios, my friend who's writes Lit RPG and is going to be doing some novels on my World of Okram together, James Hunter, and Jim Kitchen was there too. And we just played this adventure.
That guy,
that guy. It was great. Are you kidding me? These guys were serious gamers, and here Tom Morello was in that game too. Sorry, I forgot Tom. So we're we've gotten through, we've figured out a few puzzles, made a few saver die rolls. I mean, there's no joke. Like, we're like, holy crap, we're playing first edition. And we're like 12th level or whatever, but I had to make 2 saver die rolls like that were like 12 or more. I was like, holy crap, this is not good. I'm playing like a wizard or magic user first an elven magic user. We get to a place, there's a mind flayer, and he's controlling some robots, right, who are loading like a submersible. So we attack the mind flayer. We manage to kill him. There's trouble behind us, so I'm moving forward. I'm like, oh, great, he's dead. Let's run forward. And so like 3 of us were running into the room. Tom Morello is playing a centaur bard, right? And he's like, you know what? Those metal golems are still running around. I'm going to throw a boom fruit in there. And I'm thinking, oh shit, you can't talk, like in game, right? You can't. It's like this good DM is like old school, pretty hardcore, right? So he's like, I'm going to take a white one, which is a plasma grenade. So he chucks a plasma grenade in there. And I'm like, I have 40 hit points or whatever it is. I'm done. I'm dead. Right. And Vince Vaughn, he's up next. He's like, Paul White's face was the best. He was like mean mugging Tom Morello. Like, what are you doing? Like, and then it was because he was like so pissed. He's like, how dare you? Like, turned his hat backwards and was like mean mugging. And then Vince Vaughn was like, hey, man, I got Wall of Force. I'm going to go ahead and shape that like a parabola and kind of get the blast, get in between those guys and the blast and like drive the blast away. And I was like,
this guy knows D&D. That's awesome. See, there you go.
All right. This guy knows what he's talking about. And they went up to the board, they went up to the mat. They were using Arkenforge. And he's like, okay, yeah, it's going to be like this. And this is about the angle. They like wrangle it out. And sure enough, he took the blast. The Wall of Force was gone, but I didn't take any damage, and neither did anyone else. So he saved the day.
There you go.
Vince Vaughn. Thank you, Vince Vaughn.
But that's a guy that knows D&D. That's not a pretender. Yeah. That's not that's somebody that knows what they're talking about. I think a lot of the problem people have with, there's a thing going on for years about stream. You get these streamers, you got hot chick streamers that sometimes they don't really know how to play very good, but they're wearing a bikini. So, hey, I'll watch them play games. And people have some people have a problem with that, but nobody ever has a problem with somebody that really is into the game, male, female, whatever, as long as they're they're real D&D fans, and those guys just
authenticity, Mike, is the word you're looking for. If they're authentic,
yes,
they're not just oh, I'm going to play the role of a gamer. No, you actually are a gamer, and it shows. And that means a lot.
Deborah Ann Wool loves D&D, and she is awesome. What a DM! She's amazing. I've learned.
I've seen some videos. She's great. She is great.
She's great. She's awesome. Kate Welsh, no joke. She's a great player. Oh gosh, there's another one who's from the Gax packs, Vivid Vivka. She loves gaming, dude. She has a riot. She has a blast playing. She embraces that, with both arms. She was like, thank you so much. This is what I needed. Life is stressful. Playing D&D with this group is just such a joy for me, and she's a huge fan. Elisa Teague, also another female gamer, is like,
oh yeah,
rock and roll, super, super good. I mean, there's a ton of great girl gamers who, when I was growing up, it seemed to me there wasn't as many. And I've heard some people argue they were there. Maybe they were just playing D&D with other girls, other women, because we're like stupid men. We don't know how to act around.
Right?
It was always it was always somebody's girlfriend.
Yeah, or you're trying to drag girls that you like to your geek activity on a weekend, and maybe you get the one that's like an amateur pagan who believes in what she's reading in the $4 paperback books at Barnes and Noble. But for the most part, they looked at you like you grew a third eye, and they were like, "Oh, this is what you guys do. We will see you in school and avoid you after that." Thank you very much.
I had the cute girl came over to my house because some guys were like, "Oh, let's hang out, let's swim, let's do some stuff," and I was showing them like my dad's gun collection. I was like, "Oh, check this out," right? And I just found a note later from one of the popular girls that was like, said nerd and had an arrow pointed out or whatever. And I was like, I was like, oh man, that's harsh, right? Come on, that's awfully rough. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't cool. It definitely, it just wasn't cool to be a gamer, And in fact, it was dangerous, just like Stranger Things gets a lot of that right. They really did a pretty good job.
Oh, they did a very good job. But it's funny because at North Texas, for a number of years now, the wives, or it's not even the wives, the spouses of the frogs, mostly happen to be wives of people involved with Frog Guy games. They generally have like a Sunday morning game that they put together. Yeah. And
it's a motley crew, though. I'm just saying the Frog
It's a motley crew.
I don't know.
As my wife put it, she's like, I thought you boys were violent. She goes, you just put women together at a table. She goes, we're playing the widows of a bunch of gangsters in Chicago that all got like taken out, and now we're taking over the business. She goes, I'm playing with sweet women that are torturing people and then killing them after getting the information. I'm like, really? She goes like,
my wife. So a friend of ours' wife played, and my wife afterwards just said, "What do you know about fill in the blank?" I said, "I mean, she's great." She goes, "I'm worried about her." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Well, we played the wives of gangsters," and she went into really explicit torture of this gangster man. They tied him to a chair, and she started telling me. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty rough. I don't even think we would do that. That's like over the top." She's like, "Yeah, she really got into it, Mike. She really got into it." I'm like, well, role playing. Sometimes you have a role playing. You don't know you're good at role playing until you role play, and then you really get into it. So.
I'm just teasing Phantom Jen. I love the Frog God. I love the Frog Gods. They've been nothing but shown me nothing but love and support at GaryCon, and I feel a great amount of affection and appreciation for those guys.
Don't let her
bust your balls, because I'm a guy, and that's how we show love, right?
Yeah, that's it. And Jen, there's no raffle tonight. There's nothing for you to win.
Yeah, you can't win the raffle.
You're disqualified anyway.
Sorry, Jen. So the big successes here. So I'm going to ask you some tough questions because I'm going to bust your balls here. But but really, I'm serious. I'm really interested in the answer. So
okay. Sure.
At any point, do you think that this convention is getting too big for Lake Geneva? Because I think I really think you could fill up almost anywhere you win at this point, especially if you're going to continue to put on the good shows that you have. What's the future for GaryCon? Do you want to? I take it you want to stay in Lake Geneva, but are you going to be able to?
And that's an excellent question, and it's been asked before, and it's something I've wrestled with for a number of years. So I started GaryCon. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, it came out of an event, a very sad event. My father passed away March 4th of 2008. I came to Lake Geneva. Oh my gosh, it's just a horrible event and life changing. But there was such an outpouring of support and just people sharing in the loss of my father. Even if they didn't know him personally, they felt like they lost someone important to them because of the role that Dungeons and Dragons had created in their life. Some people corresponded with my father, or he had some interactions with him, but even complete strangers who never met him said, I feel like there's a loss in my family because Dungeons and Dragons, his creation, was so influential in my life. I'm going to get in the car and drive to Lake Geneva. So some people said that. And, the funeral was small and private, but we thought, okay, wouldn't it be a great way to celebrate his life to have, a gathering and play games and share food and drink and swap stories about Dad. That's what he loved to do. And so my brothers and sisters and I rented the American Legion Hall in Lake Geneva, which was a site of previous conventions in the 70s, as well as Gen Con and some other places like that. We showed the D&D cartoon. We showed the Futurama episode he was in. There was a podium that you could share a story about my dad. We bought dishes to pass. There was a bar there if you wanted a cocktail or anything like that, or beer, you could do that. And everyone played games, not just D&D, role-playing games, card games, board games. My dad loved them all. Any of them were welcome. And we did that for, a few hours together. People had a good time. And someone said to me, Luke, this was a great time. What a great way to remember your father. You should do it again next year. I was stupid enough to take them up on that. And so GaryCon 1 was born in 2009. I wanted that to be just a game day. I thought I would come and spend a couple $1,000s each year and invite people and play games. The community is so generous and so caring. They wouldn't let me just foot the bill for that. I'm not independently wealthy or anything. And so they just stood up at 5:00 and said, let's do an auction for Luke. And, to help offset some of these expenses. And, like Jolly Blackburn, drew some sketches, people just pulled out a bag, something. Hey, I've got this edition. And we raised $400 more than I spent. Right. And so I didn't know what to do with it. So I formed a company and said, well, I'll just put this back into the company. And I did that for years and years and years. And so it kept growing and growing and growing. And we grew out of obviously the first year we grew out of the American Legion Hall. They would close at 10:00. We couldn't do that. We wanted 24-hour gaming. So we moved to a hotel. We outgrew the Ridge, and now we're in the biggest place in Lake Geneva. And 3,000 people is probably close to the largest that we can get there reasonably, because to me, there's a couple things that make it GaryCon. It's it's a celebration of my dad's life put on by a son for his father, right? I think there's an element of that, and people pointed out to me, and I understand and respect that now, but I may not have seen that originally. But anyone who's lost their father can identify with that feeling, right? It's really important. And to me, it's in a sacred location, which is Lake Geneva, where Dungeons and Dragons was created. It was so influential to my father. He lived there since the age of 8. It's where he developed a lot of his, imagination and developed who he was. And it's where he lived the majority of his life, right? So I think those are kind of essential elements of GaryCon. And there's a lot of people who live in Lake Geneva who are associated with TSR, right? Who still come to the convention. If I feel like the location is harming our ability to fulfill our mission, which is to celebrate his life, put on a great event with amazing games, and kind of facilitate a community, then I would move it. But as long as I can effectively carry a convention in Lake Geneva, that is my preference, and I think that's where it'll be.
Well, you're so. I mean, it's not like. I mean, you could move to Milwaukee, but it's not going to be the same convention. Or Madison. I mean, Alex Cameron puts on a great convention, Gamehole Con in Madison in the fall.
Yep.
But the whole point about GaryCon is it's in Lake Geneva, and it's at the old Playboy Club, or one of the Gen Cons was. And there's just so much history there. The Horticultural Hall is there, Gary's house there. I mean, your house. It's all there. It would just be and. Honestly, Luke, I don't envy this decision because I mean, where I'm at, Gary and I are with North Texas, we have hotels everywhere. We're not stuck in any one location because we don't have a history there of this is where D&D was born. You're stuck there because this is where D&D was born, and once you move out of there, you just become another gaming convention. You're not.
Yeah, I mean, I would be
concerned
about. I'd be concerned about that as well. In especially, I guess there may be a future date when when the folks who are part of the origins of our hobby are no longer with us, that maybe it's less impactful to be in Lake Geneva.
Sure.
But really what I'm doing is talking to Lake Geneva and the Visit Lake Geneva Bureau, the president there, Stephanie Klett, and she's 100% on board. Finally, we got the right person there. She learned how to play D&D a couple of years ago, and she sought me out when I was back in Lake Geneva this couple weeks ago for a different matter, and she just wanted to meet me, and she was like, "Oh my God, I played D&D. I totally get it. I know what it's about. I can't believe Lake Geneva has not embraced Gary Gygax and made this town needs to have more stuff." She's like, "What can we do around GaryCon? I want to build some shoulders around GaryCon. So there's stuff to do in the front. There's stuff to do in the back. Have people extend their stay while they're here. We need to get, where can we set an actual museum, right? Because I kind of gave her the info that, my opinion on the current.
Right.
Which I don't need to go into in detail, but in actually, there is the Lake Geneva Museum, which is doing
a very nice D&D exhibit, I do believe.
They do. They have a beautiful exhibit. There's a private home, 330 Center Street, where I grew up, where I was born, and where D&D was written. It's owned by Yolanda Frontney. She does it as the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons. She just bought it to be a bed and breakfast, an investment property, and she's like, "Oh wow, D&D was written here. Let's not update anything. Let's keep it as it is." She thought that was the right thing to do, right? And so she will rent it out so you can do so. So I think partnering with her and doing something is very possible. There's the spot in Sheridan Springs. What can we do there? I'm not sure how we can best make events and destinations. But we can certainly go to the Lake Geneva Museum. We can certainly do presentations. We can probably do a driving bus tour where we talk about the various things and what was going on. If you look at the map in Mike Whitwer's Empire of Imagination, there's a nice map done by Steve Sullivan that lists various spots of importance to my dad. To do just a driving tour of those things for a couple hours and stop and chat and take questions and impart some information about D&D and or my father's life would probably be of interest to people, right? So there's things that could be done that don't require it to be summertime, right? With the boating and stuff. Because Lake Geneva is a resort town for those who've never been. It is a town of 7,000 people. It's a tiny little town in Wisconsin with a beautiful lake. And there's some mansions around there because it's kind of Chicagoland's play area. So there's like the Wrigley Mansion, the Schwinn Mansion, and things like that. But they don't do anything for the town. They just happen to have their mansions there. Lake Geneva is where my dad grew up, and this is a game that's impacted. I don't know. Is there? I mean, it's. I don't want to. I mean,
billions. It's millions, but probably billions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just
millions. I think
a crazy amount of money.
Yeah. Hundreds of millions safely just through video games. The impact that it had on video games,
oh my God.
And billions if you look at Game of Thrones or something like that.
Well, if even people don't know what it is, they even if they don't know anything about my wife knows what D&D is because just the words Dungeons and Dragons, she's heard them enough. Do you have people that have never played, but they know what Dungeons and Dragons is? It's become it's a byword now. It's a way to describe. It's kind of like Kleenex. Kleenex was a name of a actual brand, and now Kleenex means any tissue.
Any tissue.
Well, that's how I hear people talk about. They're playing D&D. Well, that just means they're playing a role-playing game. That's how ubiquitous it is now.
Yeah. Agreed. It is kind of interesting. So someone asked, is the 330 Center Street a historical site? No, but it probably should be. I would think the city of Lake Geneva should look at purchasing it and making it into a museum site, and partnering with the museum, which is not too far away from there, and holding events there. And you could do, like, I was in I was in was it Vienna, where Salzburg, maybe, where Mozart maybe was in Salzburg, I think it was. Anyway, wherever Mozart was, and I went through like the home where he was born, and went through there and paid good money for that when I was a young man, just to see Mozart's place. So I'm sure people would do similar things there. And you build some events. You have festival, a Gary Gygax festival or a D&D festival, whatever it is, right?
Right.
There's stuff to drive people to Lake Geneva. Why not embrace that? So hopefully this will be the beginning of that. And for me, GaryCon probably cannot grow beyond, 3,000, 3,500. So it'll be a boutique event, and that's another thing. It takes my family, I put in probably 1,000 hours and my wife helps me. It's, 1,500, 1,600 hours of our time. Plus there's some amazing people. Believe me, this is not me just doing this. There's an amazing team of people that plan GaryCon, right? Mm-hmm. And they're mostly doing it for the love of this thing, right? So probably, if it stays small, probably after prices will go up, and that does make people feel like, oh my gosh, you're profiteering or you're icing people out.
Boy, what other choice do you have though? Look, I mean, it comes down to, you're kind of like, okay, I can have 5,000 people. We can't have it here anymore. But everybody can come, but I can't have it anymore. Or I can have 3,000 people. Everybody can come. You're just gonna have to pay a little more because we're just gonna have to do it that way. I mean, you're between a rock and a hard place. I mean, whatever decision you make, somebody's gonna be unhappy. And I don't envy you that decision at all. Luke, I think that's a tough one, really.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, and I like to make people happy. I mean, I'm trying to do this because it's a celebratory event for me, and I realize sometimes folks are just grumpy, and you just can't do it. I mean, gosh, I had this is a funny story. I'll share it. It's not worth sharing, but there was a person who signed up for a GaryCon, bought a badge from GaryCon. There's a no refund policy. It says no refunds, man. If you buy it, there's not a refund. So this person decided not to come, and they said, "Hey, man, I want a refund or whatever it is because some of my events were canceled, like the DM didn't come or whatever it was, which happens at a convention, right? You organize a convention, DM didn't show up. There's literally over 1,600 events, but there was plenty of seats. You could have found other D&D games to play in, right? But this person was like, "Oh, gee whiz, I didn't get the game I wanted, so I'm canceling and not coming to GaryCon." And then they put in like a charge card dispute or something like that. I'm like, really? A charge card dispute because your game got canceled?
You're never coming back at that point.
You're overreacting. Oh, I let him know. I said, hey, I understand. Just let you know you're not welcome. You're no longer welcome. That's it. And they took exception to that. I was like, hey, sorry, you violate the policies. This is a policy. You violate the policies, you're not welcome. This is a private event. Sorry. There's other people.
You got to understand. But Luke, the whole thing. I mean, I didn't really understand this before I started running the convention with Doug. Is that and you finally decide that you're never going to make everybody happy. There's always it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what day you have the convention on. Somebody's going to be pissed off. Doesn't matter which day. Somebody.
I can't get off in March. That's the most important.
Oh, ours is graduation. Graduation's the end of May. How dare you have a convention the first week of June? Because I have graduations. But every week. Something and every week there's something.
Yeah,
with conventions, not every convention's the same. And if you have here's our rules. You have to go by the rules. It just what can you say? Some people are going to be unhappy because they don't read the rules or figure it out. Hey, I can't do this or I can't do this. We have the same. Gary can tell you we have the same thing.
The best story for this one was GaryCon 8, which was just a hellacious convention. So from a convention organization standpoint, we were trying to run our own software, build our own website. TTE didn't exist. TTE is a godsend. I love that. I love those guys. It has flaws, whatever. It's way better than trying to do it on your own. So basically, people started registering for games. We had it set up at that point where there was like tiers of games, and some of them were gold and some were silver coins that you'd use, right? Well, the coins, in order to replicate that, we essentially used a commerce program, right? And we gave people credits for what type of badge they had that represented dollars, right? Unfortunately, the server wasn't able to take the load of people hitting F5, refresh, click, 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 right? So we crashed the website, but unfortunately, some people kept hitting refresh on their game that they wanted. That was a goal. So they used up all their fake money and then had like $1,600 charges on their credit card.
Oh my God.
From hitting refresh a bunch of times because the credit they got, they spent and then it drew against their credit card, right? So terrible design. Oh my gosh. Like in 7 minutes, we shut it down. And then we spent, dozens of hours going through and trying to figure out who really got in the game. How we got to refund these people's money. So amongst all that chaos of just like hair on fire kind of stuff, some guy was posting, "Oh yeah, Gary Con, they screw me every single year. They rip me off, they cheat me." I'm like, what? What's going? How are we cheating these guys? Like, I buy an early bird badge, which back in the day we wanted people to purchase early, so we knew how many people were coming.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and like, and we would give him a free like soda cup, right? He's like, I get this soda cup every year, and then I can't use it. And I was like, well, why can't you use it? Well, I need a non-cola diet, no caffeine beverage because of whatever special dietary health requirements they have. So I was like,
you got water.
Yeah, I was like, water. I was like, water. And I was like, wait, Diet Sierra Mist. Diet Sierra Mist fits the bill. So I called the hotel and I got to give a case of Diet Sierra Mist. I said, anytime you want to drink, refill your drink, go to the bar. They will have Diet Sierra Mist for you. Because you can't claim that I'm like, it's like the third year. They're totally screwing me. These guys are like cheap. I was like, oh my God. That's when I knew, okay, you could, you
can't make you can't make everybody happy. Nope. No, and we learned that was something at the first. Doug and I were so solicitous to people, like, okay, whatever you need. And about year 5, we're just like, screw it. You either come to our convention and have a good time and do this, or don't come. We don't care anymore. We're not going to bend over backwards because nobody is 100% happy all the time.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's hard. I want to make people. I feel like I really want people to enjoy their time. If they're coming to Legacy or they're coming to GaryCon, I really want them to enjoy their time. But you're right. There's just some people who, for lack of a better term, are miserable a-holes and just.
And then they're the people that'll get online too and rip your con and say, "Oh, this con is the shittiest, suckiest con ever." You're like, "What did I do to you? I mean, come on, you're just one person. Everybody else loves it."
The best ones are these guys suck for whatever reason. They're like, and you're like, let me look up this person's name. They've never been to the convention.
Oh,
what are they talking
about?
I
have those.
Well, I would if you didn't suck so much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like, okay. All right, fair enough. Okay,
there you go. It's like
we've absolutely
North Texas. How dare you not tell me how my DM voted? There should be a survey telling me how the DMs voted so I can choose my right DMs. I would have banned that person when they asked that question personally, but
yeah. So I guess dealing with people is difficult. So I will say, by and large, 98 or 99% of my experience is positive. Gamers are good people. They generally are cool, but every group has a couple who are difficult. But in general, gamers are great. Yeah.
They are. They're very accepting of, and usually if something goes wrong, most gamers will roll with it. Like, just things happen, whatever. And like I said, you have the percent. And Gary's always calling me up because Doug and I went through this year. And Gary is just getting his feet wet. And he's in the chat, so I'm going to embarrass him. He's done an incredible job the last few years taking over for Doug, and just amazing job because Gary is not a gamer. He had to just learn all this on the fly, and so. But every once in a while, he comes up and says, I got to run this past you. And it's always some guy that's just a dumbass. And I'm like, yeah, just a dumbass. And he's just like, but we told people 6 weeks ago that blah, blah, blah. I know we did, but people don't. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm not making.
They do not read.
No. And you just learned that. You're not going to read. No. Gary. I'm sorry, throw me under the bus. He did play D&D in high school, so screw you, Gary. But but we had, like, for instance, we sold out our hotel. Weston sold out, so we're ranging. We have a sister hotel nearby. We have some other hotels in the area, and so we're having to tell people, look, we have a month and a half to go. We have no more rooms in the hotel.
Oh, that's
We've
fine.
had this. We had this up on the site.
Nope, you can't get me. You can't guarantee me a hotel room. I'm not coming.
No,
you suck.
You're going to be in Europe. You're in Europe anyway. You're leaving us. You and Alex Kamer are going to be in whatever you're going to UK. Yeah, screw you guys. So but we have it on the site now for a month, and we still get people this day like, hey, I just tried to get a room and I couldn't get a room. Like, oh my God, I don't know what else to do. I mean, it's on the site, and every time we talk about it, we say we don't have any more rooms at the hotel.
The hotel we have the convention at GaryCon has 330 rooms in the main building. 330. There's 3,000 people that come to GaryCon. And it just FYI, out of those 330, I got to use about 80 of them for like vendors and guests and staff, right? Maybe 100, just a little bit more than that. So there's only 200 rooms. And there's people like, I can't stay in the building. I'm not going to come to Garrett.
They fill up really quick. I mean, I've been there before, and luckily for a couple of years, Frog God got game quick. But I mean, they fill up quick. I mean, if you're, it's a luck. It's just luck. It's really luck if whether or not you're going to get a room there, because you could be there right when it opens, and you could just start putting it in, and you might not get a room. It happens.
Like, have you been to Gen Con? You're
oh
my
God.
like a 20-mile radius, right? Like, yes, I'm like 10 miles away. I made it, and people will pay $400 a night happily and smile and say, I made it in Gen Con. And they want to give static to a smaller con. Like, come on, bro. I'm not, this is tough. But that's just, I think this is dealing with people in general, no matter what industry it is, no matter what event. There's just, it's always. And truth be told, I'm sometimes that guy that's like, if I can't stay there, that's it, man. I'm out. So I'm guilty sometimes, guys.
Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father was?
That's the best. If using that line works 100% of the time. Do you know who I am? No, don't do that, people.
Like, you see who this guy was over here? This guy wrote this. This guy, I don't care who you are. We got a lot of those people here. Sorry, man.
Yeah, that's just a very bad look.
We have some questions. There's been a couple questions there, Eric. I saw pop by, and so I thought we'd. Somebody asked. Oh gosh, I already lost him.
I know there was a question. Will there be?
Oh, here it is. Don Smore asked, Luke, when you were a kid, are there any members that stand out with your dad and others developing the game, creating it, maybe a meeting they had, etc.?
Well, you got to remember, in 1974, I was 3 years old. I was born in November 1970. So I'm probably not going to have any recollections of the formation of D&D other than secondhand stories that I was told. So I really can't say much about that. I grew up playing D&D from my earliest memories. I was so excited to be around the table with my dad and his friends and my older brother and stuff, and shake the dice and play games. And so it was just a really wonderful way for me to connect with my dad. It's how we shared a lot of time. Over the years, more in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I got to contribute to, play testing and development of some spells and things of that nature, in rules and play test. So obviously, I made Melf's Acid Arrow, Melf's Minute Meteors. Those were my spells. I developed the Bullywug, the Vapor Rat, and probably some other monsters that I helped out with. I gave him the idea for Legion of Gold and helped him figure that out.
Well, let's say, your name was on Legion of Gold. Yeah, you and Ernie, and so our friends were playing the module, going, "Who is Ernie and Luke?" We don't, because back then you don't have the internet, you don't know anything, and we're like, "Man, they must be his kids, and this is so cool, man! They get to actually play these modules." So I don't even know what was your part in Legion of Gold. What did you and Ernie?
I thought of the idea, so I was watching a Super Friends cartoon, and there was like guys in like shiny armor who were like blowing through walls and doing this stuff, and I was like, "Whoa, Dad! I saw this like coolest thing. There's like guys in power armor and they can like blast through walls and do cool stuff." And he's like, "All right, cool." So it sounds like it. And we started rapping about it, and he came like, "Okay, there's like a group of people and they're causing trouble," and so that was it. And then he just bounced ideas off me, and I was like 10 or something like that. So it's not like I was doing a whole lot of serious research and writing. And he gave me a with credit on that one. So he just said with, and my payment for that module was 1 year membership in the Role Playing Game Association.
Nice. RPGA membership. Boom.
Yeah, not even a lifetime, just 1 year.
Golly. Wow.
My dad was tight. He was tight, man. He wasn't good. He's like, you gotta earn this.
Gotta keep you motivated, man. I have to give you a year. What are you gonna do when you're 11?
That's true. Right, yeah. Come on. Yeah, you're right.
You peaked so early. Like, you peaked at like 10. Come on.
Oh, you've already got a lifetime membership. Now you're gonna be like, I got to power these every 2 months. Come on.
Nothing else I need to do with my life. I'm just gonna kick back on the beach now.
Lifetime
RPGA.
So. Imagine how I can sell these in the aftermarket.
Yeah. Is there an aftermarket for this? I don't pay attention to this shit.
I'm sure there is, and especially if it had Luke Gygax on the
anything collectible, anything. Luke, Bill Meinhardt. There's a market for everything.
God damn it! I should have held on to
Kitchen, all those guys. Yes, there's a market for everything.
But Meinhardt's the worst, man, because with Meinhardt, he'll sit down next to you with his catalog.
Oh my God!
Erica, and you're looking at it's like, oh my God, all the stuff. Just a list, not pictures, just a listing of everything he has. And then you're like, all right, I know something that he can't have. I have Ken St. Andre's personal copy of the second print of Tunnels and Trolls. got it in auction directly from Ken. He signed it, and I mentioned that I have this, and he flips through the book and he goes, "Yeah, I have Ken's personal copy of the first print." First
It's like,
I'm like, none of it. I'm like, so then I was like, you have to go for the really, really obscure one. It's like, all right, Gateways magazine. He cocks his head. I go, Queens College. That was the Queens College gaming group back in the early and mid '80s. They published it. I became president of the damn club after the magazine was defunct, so I got a copy of everything that was in our library. He goes, "Oh, that's pretty good." Flip, flip, flip.
Oh,
Again, I have all the first prints. I'm like, never mind. How the hell he remembers all this crap? Blew my mind.
yeah,
Obsidian Risk wants to know if there's going to be any future Gax Work products that are Castles and Crusades compatible.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Steve Chenault, and he's like, "Hey, Daddy-O, why don't you do a Castles and Crusades conversion for the Fadish and Tufi, which is my Kickstarter that's live right now. We have 6 days to go. Yeah.
What a coincidence. Who knew that was
John Miller had that question, by the way. So we'll get to John Miller's question right after this.
Yeah. Yes, we are indeed. Not only are we planning, we're 24 days into the Fadish and Tufi, which is the third part, the final, the culmination, the exciting conclusion to the Oculus of Sun Ra series, which includes the Eye of Shintufi, the Heart of Shintufi, and now the Fate of Shintufi in my world of Okrim. If you want to find out a little bit more about it, just go to KS, as in Kickstarter, gaxworks.com. And you can check it out there. We're just over $30,000 on that one, 30,666. Right, Satanic Panic, totally cool number. Yep. So yeah, and so that means we passed the $30,000 stretch reward, which was Todd Stashwick, Captain Shaw himself from Picard, will contribute to the module. He's going to write an NPC that is in the Big Bad Evil Guys or Girls retinue. So he's going to write that, and our $35,000 stretch reward is for Kelsey Dion, the person behind Shadow Dark RPG.
By the way, who will be our guest in 2 weeks on Talking Crit, just to remind everybody. We're big Kelsey fans. We're huge Kelsey.
She's great, man. She's nice. I'm not like close personal friends with her, but she's come to GaryCon a number of times. And is just so kind and down to earth.
And once again, she's authentic. She's one of those people that I didn't know much about her until Eric told me about Shadow Dark. And I started watching her videos, and you know what? She's played all the old school stuff. She learned how to play with James Mishler, big Judges Guild guy. I mean, she is the real deal. She knows all that stuff, and so I'm like, okay, cool.
Shadow Dark is old school, and we're gonna do a Shadow Dark version. We're gonna do a CNC version. I mean, I'll salt it in there. I don't care if it's the $31,000 stretch reward. We'll do a CNC conversion because I love Steve, and he's like pretty much family. Steve is family to me.
Yeah.
And so, however I can dovetail and tie in CNC, I will. And with D&D 6th edition or 5.75 or whatever they're doing, it may be something, maybe smart to go to some other version. I don't know. I know that's a whole nother can of worms. I'm not trying to rain anybody's parade.
We talk about it every week. So if you want to see your weekly WotC bash, just turn into Talking Kit the last few months, because so
you know what? I mean, I don't even hate Wizards of the Coast. I just wish they would do some stuff different. Now, I have to admit, sending Pinkertons to people's house kind of was funny after this OGL thing, but it seems like can you is somebody making this up? Are we watching a series?
Well, now
you just followed this goof up with this other thing. That's not really wise.
Now apparently, I was watching. Oh God, I forget the guy's name of the channel. He's an old school gamer, and he did a little research into it. And apparently, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have connections to the Pinkertons. Their heads of security, were both former Pinkertons. So both head of security or internal recovery for Wizards of the Coast and over at Hasbro were executives at the Pinkertons. So I guess if you need, hey, Johnny, who can you call that will work on a Sunday morning and go to somebody's house, knock on their door, and intimidate them? Oh, well, that's not a problem.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Wagner group's all tied up in Sudan and Ukraine right now, but I got some connections to Pinkertons. Maybe they can help out. I don't know. Yeah, that was crazy stuff. But yeah, so no, the Kickstarter is going fantastic. We're in the last 6 days. I have to beat the drum on that a whole bunch. This is. I'm really proud of these modules. I'm writing them with their 5th edition D&D modules. I write them with Matt Everhart, who's he's still an active duty Air Force officer. And in fact, he's on his way to being promoted to a full bird colonel. So, which is no small accomplishment.
No.
So in the Air Force, especially, that's a big deal. He's doing great stuff. And a very talented guy. So we started writing these, he's helped me out with GaryCon, the virtual GaryCon, and, really helped save GaryCon 2020 with the virtual side. So Matt's a great guy. And I've had a lot of fun writing these. I'm very proud of these modules. There's some pretty exciting and fun twists and turns going on. So pick it up. If you don't play 5th edition, that's okay. There's a Swords and Wizardry conversion where if we hit 35,000, there'll be a Shadow Dark conversion. And I'm sure I'm going to find a way to slip in a Castles and Crusades conversion as well, just because I love the trolls. But man, I tell you what, if we can get if we can get some energy behind this again, because it shot up in the first few days, as they always do, and then it goes in this terrible trough,
Right.
There's we got Chris Arneson doing some art, Jeff Talanian's going to help out, Kelsey Dion, kind of waiting in the wings, ready to do stuff. I got Brian Berg, Robert Schwalb, Patty Finn from Penny Dragon Games, Alex Kammer, and that was all just a couple phone calls, really, in texts. So if it goes even crazier, I'll find more people to help out and do stuff. But it's just amazing. So yeah, and yes, Matt Everhart, that guy's great.
And there's a level there, which I was looking through there, and you can buy all 3 modules, print and PDF for $60. That is quite a deal to buy. So
that's it.
I already have the first 2, so I can't do that. I've got the first 2 already. So, but yeah, if you were just jumping in, that's probably the best way to roll. Just get all 3 at once, $60. That's a great deal.
Yeah. And we're doing I think we're gonna do a backer kit add-on where we're gonna have I think it's gonna be 20 or 32 page kind of background of Okrim and Shintufi, because the next project is to write like a folio or a gazetteer and kind of flesh it out a little bit more. But since most of that stuff is up here in my noggin for the past several years, I figured it was probably smart to get some things out to help your DM get the flavor right and understand it. Okrim is inspired by my experiences a lifetime of gaming, my deployments to the middle, kind of the crappy parts of the Middle East, the hot, deserty, horrible parts, as well as playing Metamorphosis Alpha with Jim Ward to a certain extent. So I kind of I wanted to write a module for GaryCon 5, maybe. And instead of just writing, I was like, man, back then, 5th edition wasn't really pervasive, right? So a lot of us were playing 3rd edition, 1st edition, whatever it was. I'm like, man, we're constantly playing Western folklore based, kind of fantasy. What could we do to change it up, to reestablish a sense of wonderment? What could you do to throw your players for a loop? And I said, why not have them sail across the ocean and end up in a place that's like a Bosphorus, maybe like a Turkey or a Maghreb that's like a North Africa or something like that, and give them some environmental challenges. You can reskin the monsters. And my idea is there's a magical cataclysm, a magical nuclear war that happened, right? So you got the area has been irradiated. There's the blighted lands. There's buried cities out there with fabulous, instead of technology, fabulous magic, right? That people don't understand anymore from a lost civilization. And you want to be an adventurer, you want to go get that power, wealth, and cool stuff. So that was just basically the idea. And I wanted to, kind of remind people, hey, walking around in plate mail in 120 degree plus heat would not be really very much fun.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was kind of working on that. Now, of course, the 5th edition rules changes and stuff like that made things a little bit more challenging with some of the spells and the way things are done and healing and that sort of stuff. So the first adventures that I wrote specifically for 5th edition are the Shintufi series, Eye Shintufi, Heart of Shintufi, and Fate of Shintufi. Really,
Okay.
really fun. I've played them numerous times with different groups, anywhere from like authors conventions to gaming conventions, and it's amazing. I guess we find this anytime you run. You can take the same module, same scenario, and run 10 different groups through it, and you're going to get 10 different solutions to how it turns out.
That's
And I found the same thing. Yeah, it's amazing. I've had so much fun, and I think the first part of Eye Shintufi, where you end up having to research and try to find what this Oculus of Sen Rabah is, and you go to a library. The most fun I have is playing this old, kind of sassy librarian that they have to convince to do something. I just have so much fun with Diaphamin playing that guy. I've got a little voice and mannerisms and stuff down because I've run it so many times. I just had a blast, which is honestly not when writing the module where I thought I would enjoy. I thought I'd enjoy some of the traps or the combats or no. This guy is actually so much fun. So, anyways, check it out. I think pretty much there's material in there for most gaming groups. There's RP, there's puzzle solving, and there's combat. So whatever you kind of want to highlight is good. There's required encounters in there. If you run through only the required encounters, I think you get it done in about 4 to 6 hours. If you want to extend that a little bit, so some of the optional stuff, I think reasonably you have 12 hours in there. The guys on the Gygax pack played it, and I think they're in the first 11 pages or so, and they took 9 hours. So they went exceptionally slowly.
Good Lord. Come on.
I don't know what they were doing. They were doing a lot of RP. But yeah, so you're getting at least 12 hours and, maybe a bit more. But I'd say 12 hours of good gameplay out of each one of those. And at, $20 or whatever we're charging for them, I think that's pretty good. We have Alyssa Fadden maps in there. We got some great artwork. Alyssa's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Detail is.
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I just encourage you to take a peek. At least back it for a couple bucks or whatever, and get on our mailing list if you don't get a chance, or back it for a couple bucks. Go to Backer Kit if you like what you see, or get a chance to review it somehow. Then you can always upgun it there. So that's my pitch. Boom, boom. Back my Kickstarter.
It's $60 to get the full collection. Print and PDF is nice.
That's a good deal. The $60 is a great deal.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get people in. I'm trying to get it into people's hands because I think I'm proud of it, and so I want people to see it. But yeah, I mean, $60 is reasonable. I mean, unfortunately, inflation is real. Costs are hard when you're printing small numbers.
Oh yeah.
It's costly.
I know a number of people in the industry, large and small, and the complaint from a lot of people like, why don't you print in the U.S.? If you want to pay $45 for a 32-page module printed as a short batch of event,
I am printing in the U.S., but it's the reason I'm able to do it for not a horrible price is my good friend since 9th grade is my distributor inside the U.S., so Trick or Treat Studios. So instead of printing a couple hundred copies, like 200 copies of this thing, which would be like $10 or $12 to print, right? It'd be awful. We can do it for like $4 or $5 because he prints enough so that he can do his distribution to hobby shops and that sort of thing. So
that works.
So that helps out. That helps me keep prices down. Otherwise, yes, those would be $35 or something for you to get a module. And that's a tough. I'm a retired guy. I don't have huge sums of money laying around either. If a module, just a one scenario I was going to play, was going to cost you $35, I'd have to think long and hard before I could pull the trigger on that.
Yeah. No, I think at $20 a piece, you get the trilogy for $60, and you get print plus PDF, which I probably don't bitch about this enough, but I really detest when I got to pay extra to get a PDF copy with my print copy. Really. It's like, but I'm getting the print, which is the PDF should just be like the bonus I can read in bed on my tablet and I want to keep my wife up. But if I'm getting print, the PDF is not the primary resource there. I always gets me annoyed when it's like, oh, you want extra money for the PDF.
I raised the price on the PDF from like $10 or $12. Can't remember, somewhere in that range, just because I realized, man, where are the most of the costs? That's really in the design and the art and all that stuff that goes across in that medium, and we save on. It's nice not to have to ship it or whatever, but really, giving a PDF for $4.99 was cutting my own throat. I couldn't do it, so I had to raise the price to like $10 or $12, whatever it is. I think it's 10 for the old ones and 12 for the newer one, just to get people invested. So for like $30 or so, you can also get them in PDF.
It's 12 for the it's 12 for the current, and if you want the trilogy, it's 29. And that's
29. We cut so it's under $30.
Yeah, and especially if you're overseas, if you're going to be in some place where shipping is going to bend you over and treat you like you're going through, I don't know, the penal system. You might want the PDF and maybe have a local printer print you out a copy for your personal use. You're probably saving money in the long run, especially on the small stuff. Oh my God, overseas shipping! I remember 15 years ago when I started like sending shit to people in different countries. It was cheap. I could do it, and it wasn't going to bend. And then all of a sudden, like prices tripled in like a year, and I was like, "Oh, that's it."
Oh
I don't even want to send like a letter out.
Yeah. So if you're in Uzbekistan or Nepal or places like that, PDF is the way to go.
Or Brazil, where they steal all your mail anyway.
There's a big D&D community in Brazil. I've been on like a podcast in Brazil like 2 times. It's nicest guys. They love the D&D cartoons. They're huge.
Oh, they had a car commercial using the characters from the D&D.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And of course, just because Mike and I are on top of this stuff, when Wizards of the Coast decided that they were going to make sure that D&D was being supported everywhere, that's when they cut back on their support in Brazil and killed their customers.
They got the customer service
community engagement team. It's like, we don't need them. Brazil takes care of itself, I guess. I don't know. But I know a couple of Brazilian gamers, and they are very passionate about gaming, and they are very creative. They really dive into it in Brazil. So God bless.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of trying to get more international, get out there more internationally. I'm going to UK Games Expo in June. Unfortunately, not able to make it to North Texas for that reason. And then I'm talking to the guys at Luca to go to Luca in 2024 in Italy. So that should be fun. And I'd love to. I mean, believe it or not, I've never been to Asia other than Southwest Asia. It doesn't really count, like the Far East. So I'd love to go to a convention in Japan or Korea or any of those spots. That'd be just amazing. Because I look at it as an opportunity. I bring my family along and work a booth. And that way, it's a little bit of a way to take the family and do some gaming together and that sort of thing. Because my girls have never traveled. I shouldn't say that. My youngest daughter has traveled to Mexico when we went on a cruise to Mexico, but that's it. Otherwise, they haven't been outside of the United States. So I think exposing children to other cultures outside of the United States is important, right? So getting people to see other places other than just the U.S. is good.
So Gary is busting loose.
Well, yeah, about to say Gary is busting your balls there.
Luca is not going to compete with Luca is not in the same time frame as North Texas. So yeah, Gary's harsh, man.
So Tammy asked a question. Said, Luke, are you continuing the tradition and legacy with your children in playing D&D? Do they know how famous their grandpop is and how beloved your family is? What's the deal with you and the girls?
They didn't take my word for it when I was like, guys, this is important. However, when I take them to conventions and people talk to them and say, oh my gosh, your grandfather was so great, this is what it meant to me, et cetera, then they get it, because I'm not telling them, I'm just their dad, right? So that's not important. We don't game nearly as much as I would love to, because it's hard to get everybody together, because my wife started playing and she's so busy because she's a nurse and she's finishing up her BS and her Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and helps me with GaryCon. So it's hard to get her pinned down to play. but everybody wants to play. They're now good. My youngest daughter used to have to like coerce her sometimes, like, sit down, you're going to play. Now she's like, oh yes, I can read. I understand what's going on. I'm now almost 10. I get it. I love D&D. Let's play. So we don't get to play as much, but we do have board game nights and we talk about that sort of thing. So they get it. They are involved. They like to go to conventions and help, run the booth and be part of the community. So they're into it. And I think they get it from that. And also stuff like a D&D movie. That's kind of, that's hard to ignore for a young person. And coming to GaryCon and seeing all the happiness that is around that event, sinking. The person they were most impressed with at GaryCon, by the way, was Big Show, because he had a children's show on, and they were like, "Oh my God, Big Show was there! You didn't introduce me to Big Show." What they were mad at me for not introducing me to Big Show, because they loved that program.
So you saw the new D&D movie? Did you take your kids too?
Yeah. They saw it twice.
It was a good kid movie. It was a good movie for kids. I think it was.
It was very accessible. It was very accessible. You know what? You didn't need to play D&D to enjoy that movie.
Right.
Was it an Academy Award winner? No. But it certainly was entertaining.
Was it better than the first one? Yes. Oh my God, yes. The bar was down here, Luke. It was so far down.
You could trip on the bar before,
It was bad. Now, I think I'm looking at the numbers, like the profitability and stuff like that. I think they're at 170 or 190 million or something like that. At $150 million budget, you want to be at 300 million to be profitable. That's kind of like the rule of thumb, double whatever the budget was. So they're going to maybe get close to that. I don't know. But I think they're doing well enough that we'll see a sequel. Which
I think that's the whole thing, is that you're trying to start like a trend or something. You're trying to start, look, you could have this first movie. Maybe they spent too much money. Maybe next time only have $100 million budget and you're going to do a little better, but you're getting the word out there. Yeah. When you start a franchise, sometimes, you just got to get word of mouth. And the great thing about D&D players is, it's like a cult, right? I mean, you get people that have already seen the movie like 7 or 8 times. So you have kind of that cult movie aspect to it, where you're gonna have return audiences. When the DVD comes out, people are gonna buy it. And so I think that they're probably gonna factor that into their viability. Like, hey, maybe it didn't, because I'm sure they wanted an MCU style, oh my God, this thing just blew up, and we made $500 million. That they didn't get that, but I think they're profitable enough to where it wasn't a crash and burn by any means.
No. What was the first MCU? Was it Spider-Man?
No, it was Iron Man.
It was Iron Man. Okay, it was Iron Man. And was Iron Man like a crazy success?
It did pretty good. Yeah, it did really good. It did a lot better than they thought, and there's a lot of parallels, because while Iron Man, they spent some money on, they didn't spend as much money as some of the later MCU movies, because they were just kind of like, well, we don't really know how it's going to do, because Iron Man's kind of a B hero. He's not the X-Man or whatever, and it really surprised him. And then the next few movies just absolutely blew up, because people were just so, they just wanted to see their Marvel characters treated with respect, and just, hey, this is an actual serious movie and there's good actors in it. And I think that's the whole thing with the D&D movie. It was treated with respect. I mean, there's humor in it, but it's not making fun of the, material. It's, that there's a good story in there. The actors they're competent actors we've seen in other stuff before. And I just think they did everything right. I mean, it was nothing. I had a lot of arguments with a lot of really good friends of mine that wanted to see something dark and gritty and gloomy, and I said that's just not what they're going to do with D&D, because that's not most D&D games. Most D&D games are not like that.
Don't you want to appeal to people who are 13 and up, so that they
can?
If it's an R-rated film, you're going to limit your.
I wanted a movie true to the AD&D 1E rules. I wanted to see them act out the casting segments.
The material components and stuff.
Yes. Where's your sand for that sleep spell, sir?
Yeah, it's a little.
Nothing drives me more crazy than that.
It's a little too wonky. Yeah, you're not going to get there. And you can't turn into an owl bear, or you can't do so many druidic shifts and whatever. It's a movie. Relax, people. It's a game and it's a movie. It was entertaining.
There was nothing disagreeable about it. I mean, but I went and saw it with my wife. And I had to talk my wife to get in. She's like, I'm not going to go see the D&D movie. I said, come on, honey, just go with me and let's go. And she liked it. She's like, oh, there was nothing. She goes, my wife's speaking. There was no curse words. Well, there was a couple of curse words, and there was no sex. That's her big. Oh, that was great. I was like, well, it's probably for kids, honey. They're not going to have sex in it. But I knew what she meant. She meant she hates to see a movie. Then all of a sudden they have this unobligatory love scene that makes no sense because, we want to see the star and the main actor and actress take their clothes off. So she thought, I was like, no, they're not going to have that in the D&D movie. So she liked it. She thought, oh, it was really good. She understood all that was going on. She says, oh, I didn't even have to know about D&D to understand it. That's exactly. It's like, if you are into D&D, there's little Easter eggs all through there. There's tons of Easter eggs in the movie. But if you're not into D&D, it's just a fantasy movie. And that, I think the best thing I thought about it was there's a lot of people that I knew that didn't play D&D that went and saw it just because it looked like it was an enjoyable fantasy movie rather than, you have to play D&D.
My lawyer went to it because obviously I had met with her around GaryCon, that sort of stuff. And she went with her friends and she does not play D&D, and her friends were nurses and didn't play D&D. They all enjoyed it and said, I totally got it. And you know what? I'm interested in learning more about D&D because I think I understand what it's about. So this was, I think that was also an important aspect of it, because just like Critical Role or other live play shows help demystify what D&D was, this D&D movie also, I kind of understand what's going on here. This is an adventure, right? This is like a storyline. And once you understand that you get to insert yourself as a character and influence the outcomes, then you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So essentially your D&D scenario is an outline, of what could happen, right?
Right.
And then as the interplay between the game master or dungeon master who's, controlling that, who's the keeper of the outline, right? And all of your inputs as to, and then you got to figure out how to adjust and where those branches are gonna go with it. That's the cooperative storytelling part, which my dad hated that word. It's not storytelling. It's, right. But it's essentially, it's an outline and you get to influence where you end up, some aspects of it, right? Otherwise
it's not storytelling, it's story building, maybe storytelling has a connotation that I guess a lot of the old school, like, storytelling. Let's see now. Isn't that like Vampire the Masquerade? Is
yeah.
But it builds a story, and everybody's adding their piece to the story, and the story is more than just the sum of the pieces, right? It just like it's that total. Everybody's individual actions makes for a better story in the end. And so Tammy doesn't get mad at me because I can't afford the aggro. Do your kids know how important their grandpa was?
I think they do, and again, that's less from me saying it. I'm sure they hear it and they're like, yes, Dad. But when other people help point out, hey, he influenced me in this way, and they see, and they're able to kind of grow into that and look for themselves. They see its impact in video games and things like that. So, and they realize a lot of the terminology and structure that's in video games came out of Dungeons and Dragons. The fact that, probably one of the most famous people who was at GaryCon, or most accomplished people who was at GaryCon that no one recognized, was a guy named Dan Weiss, who was the story runner for Game of Thrones, right? Holy crap. And he loves D&D. He's that's obviously something that's been very inspirational to him. And it led him to his career, right, where he's been very successful. So just seeing all these people who have been influenced by D&D positively, as well as hearing stories, if they're around me, of how D&D changed many people's lives for the better. Because it's great that celebrities play D&D. I also think it's really cool that a person who happens to play D&D who doesn't have particularly fame or fortune or whatever comes and shares a story. I had a terrible learning disability. I was failing all my classes. Everybody thought I was, something was, whatever it was. I was going to be turned out, I was an idiot or whatever the case may be. Whatever these negative things were. I saw this book with this cool art. I saw these people having fun. I sat down, I opened the book, and I said, I'm going to figure this out. And then I learned how to play D&D, and now I am an attorney or whatever it is, right? Or I'm a doctor, or whatever. I had a productive life and made this great group of friends for decades. That's a huge success story. How much more do you want from something that you've created, really? Than to give people not only hundreds and thousands of hours of enjoyment, but to change their life for the better in all aspects. Hands down, that's pretty amazing.
Well, I got to agree. I mean, my old gaming group from high school, which morphed into college, which morphed into post college. Yeah, we hit that point where everybody started getting like real jobs and families and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, we for a couple of years we weren't getting together, but we'd always talk.
Yeah.
9/11 happened. We lost one of our friends in the towers. In our group, everybody was either in the towers or reported to the towers. That's how scary it was. Yeah. But we lost one member, and now every spring, so probably in about 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to be doing it. We get together, and we exchange some gaming material and gifts. And same people that I've been friends with now for probably 40 years, and I will probably be doing this until we all pass. Yep. And that's we still bond on our stories of AD&D and 2E, Rollmaster, and Warhammer, because these are the bonds that we built, and the bonds, they last. Now, do our schedules work? I mean, I can't. We played VTTs for a while because everybody could get up at like 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday when nobody was working, and game. But now everybody has kids. I'm the only one that's retired. I've got, like, you've probably seen this too. Friends that you grew up with because of D&D. I got friends that are managers at Deloitte. One's a vice president at Merrill Lynch, and I took the job that allowed an early retirement. So I'm the one that will probably be organizing the gift giving, because I'm the one that has the time to do it. But we get together because that bond doesn't change, and gaming makes some very strong bonds because your role playing. I know it's fictional, but you're role playing life and death encounters that really get some of those emotions going, and those are what a lot of your bonds are built upon in life.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
It's very important. Yeah, it's. I know that. So the group I originally played with, and I've told Eric a couple times, the new campaign we started. We haven't gamed together in years and years and years. Well, our gaming group is back together for the first time in almost 50 years, and so we all meet once a month, and it's the same guys. And things are different. One of my friends has Parkinson's, and he's taking medication. Another one's a doctor. He's been a doctor for now. He's been a gynecologist for 40 years, which, by the way, leads to a lot of in-game jokes. And then my brother Robert is there, and it's just cool to have all those guys back together. But it's just a shared experience because we have so many stories. Our main D&D years were probably 77 through 90 or so, and we just have so many memories tied up with that, that time and just all the things we did. And that's just something you can just never take away from us because, no matter what we do. Years ago, I had Jim Rosloff, while he was still with us, I had him commissioned a portrait of all the original of each of my players' original characters fighting in the Queen of the Dimwit pits, because we went through all the G series, D series modules, and I had him do a copy, and I made copies for everybody in my gaming group. It's just awesome. It's just something you can have and then just share forever. And, it's just the memories is what makes the gaming community so great, is because you have these people, even if you don't have a group that's been together 40 years, I have people that just have jumped from group to group because they've moved. And that's the one thing, you go into another town, you can find a gaming group and usually you fit right in, boom, you're there, you sit at the table and everybody starts rolling dice and there you go. You're part of the group then,
So I'll answer the question that's on the screen there. Satanic Panic was very. Your points are 100% accurate, but the Satanic Panic was very real. It was super scary. We got death threats. People wanted to kill my father because they thought he was from the devil. He carried a gun, and his driver carried a gun with him. He had a bulletproof vest. We put motion detectors in the house and sensors on all the windows. We fenced in the like 10 acres of our yard. We had 6 Malamute Huskies who ran at night. There's people who would go circle around our house. We didn't know who they were. It drove my mom nuts. So yes, it was very scary because some people are unbalanced and want to play, a game or an object or an album for problems that people have in the world. And gosh, I don't think we can tie Ozzy Osbourne's music to people being suicidal any more than we can say that Dungeons and Dragons is from the devil. It's pretty ludicrous. My dad said if I could cast magic spells, I wouldn't write a stupid game. I would be ruling the world, right? So he's like, obviously, they haven't read any of these books. Gust of wind, the component is a legume, right? So it's like farting. Okay, that's it, right? Beans, musical food. And then shocking grasp right there, or maybe it's lightning bolt. I can't remember which one. Is a glass rod in a rabbit's fur.
I think it's lightning bolt.
Yeah. So come on, so you just shock yourself. It's a little static electricity. So it's tongue-in-cheek kind of stuff, and that people were so, gosh, I don't know. I mean, willfully ignorant that they didn't bother to open up the book or learn or watch a game. Yet they would rail about this being from Satan. Then obviously
because it was on TV. And listen, I went. My parents were great. My mother's aunt, Norma, sister Camilla, full black habit nun. Didn't believe in Vatican II, Latin Mass only. I was 18. My parents were in the Poconos. Norma was staying at the house watching her sister. She couldn't sleep because she slept in that damn. God bless you, Norma. She slept in that damn habit 24/7. It was a hot summer night. She couldn't sleep, so she went to my bedroom because I was downstairs in the air conditioning, and found all my D&D books. Called my parents 8 a.m. in the morning. The next morning, told them that she was going to do them a favor and throw them all out for them because she was going to save my soul. My mother knew how to handle it. Was like, Norma, just leave it for us. I'll take care of it when I get back. Woke me up at 8:30 to tell me, listen, Norma's there for another 4 days. We're not back for another week. Do us a favor. Your friends play other games besides D&D, right? Like that Traveler shit and other stuff. I'm like, yeah. Tell them we played at my house. We played at my backyard all the time. We're into the dining room. Play anything but D&D until your Aunt Norma leaves. Then you can play what you want. So, but it was you dealt with that. And by the way, since I mentioned Aunt Norma, I'm going to give my last Aunt Norma story. I had to pick her up from the airport at Newark right after 9/11, like 3 months after, when National Guardsmen were patrolling the airports with weapons. I know the ones that were at the World Trade Center didn't have any ammo because they told me at the time when I was working there because New York National Guard would not authorize live ammo. So the cops, just stupidity. But I'm going to pick up Norma. She's legally blind and half deaf. And I see her in a black habit on a wheelchair. And I'm like, Norma, it's your nephew, Eric. I'm going to pick you up. Who? Eric. Oh, good. Did you bring your gun? Because she's half deaf. She's yelling this. And I'm looking at the National Guardsman above me and I'm like, shield and ID out real quick. Like, Norma, I left it in the precinct. I can't bring it to the airport. Like, don't shoot me. So, she lived.
Yeah. So I was in the National Guard, in the California National Guard during the riots. They gave everybody ammo. And so when the police were talking to the National Guard, I think they said somebody said something like, cover me. And so the infantry guys like started laying down a base of fire. Because cover me while I move. Gotcha. We're gonna lay down. It's totally different in a war zone.
Oh my God! I'm sure. I was talking again. This is like 2 days after 9/11. We're doing site security down in the world by the ruins, and I'm talking with. I was a cop, just PO, and I'm talking with a sergeant in upstate New York, and he's like, "Listen, I'm going to be very upfront with you and your fellow officers. They don't trust us with live ammo." And now I get an idea why. So he goes, here's the thing. If something goes down, we will put our lives down. We will fight hand to hand. We will beat somebody to a pulp. You're going to have to do all the shooting. Do you understand what we're telling you? I was like, yeah, this is a really fucked up way to run things, but yeah, I understand. So, maybe
very
Luke,
risk averse. So yeah, anytime you have a bunch of soldiers with ammo, it can get crazy. So yeah, but we did it, just so you know, in the riots in LA. Uh, there was live ammo issued to everybody who was out there in the streets. So
Wow.
yeah, and that was serious. There was looting. The people's lives were threatened, so they did. There was live ammo issued to all the soldiers who are out there enforcing security. So just FYI, I'm gonna go freshen my drink briefly and BRB.
Oh, BRB. Okay.
Be right back.
I thought you meant bring your own beer because I already drank my whiskey. I'm out. I'm OUT. I'm OUT out. Good questions, everybody here. We're slowly getting caught up to the questions here, and
we've been doing pretty good actually. All things considered, I gotta say, and they've been good questions.
But by the way, so I didn't bring up my favorite was, they had bother about Dungeons and Dragons, BADD, which was what was the lady's name? It was Thomas Raddick. He was the psychiatrist.
Was it Pulling?
Pat Pulling, yeah, whose son Big Pulling killed himself, and he had D&D stuff in his room. So she thought. So anyway, they would go around these lecture tours, and they go to police departments and city councils, and they would just talk about the evils of D&D, and everybody that played it killed themselves. But it was a lot of cherry picked, made up facts. It wasn't really real stuff, and so they did their little tour for a while, and actually that was a big that was a big negative for D&D for years, was the Bad Against Dungeons and Dragons group.
Yeah,
and the fact that they would do all these speeches, and from what I understand, Pat Pulling was a true believer. I mean, she really believed this. Now, Thomas Raddick was a con man, and I was very happy to find out just a few years ago, he's still practicing, he's got to be 800 years old now. But he was arrested, and he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life because it turns out he was writing fake prescriptions to hookers for sexual favors, and so he did that quite a bit. Yeah, and so he's in prison for the rest of his life now. So that's a happy ending to the Ballad Against.
Whoa! You had to put happy ending into that.
Oh yeah.
Oh. By the way, I want to thank Eric Wahlberg for the question for Louis.
Wow, you made like $15 tonight. That's like a watershed moment.
I can buy Mike a new headset. But it's actually working tonight, Mike. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, Dawn's right. Yeah, Pat Pulling. She really was a true believer. I think she really in her mind thought that. But yeah, Raddick was the one that added a little oomph to it because he was a psychiatrist and he could talk about stuff, but he was just a con man. He was a grifter, and he got his just desserts about 10 years ago when he was paying hookers off in prescriptions and for like Oxy. I think he was giving them Oxy or Oxy prescriptions. And anyway, he ended up he's in jail for the rest of his life. So I was just Luke. I was just talking about the bothered about Dungeons and Dragons group and how that was helping. So yeah, and Thomas Raddick, he ended up in prison a few years ago for selling prescriptions to hookers for sexual favors. So. That had a happy ending. I wish your dad had been around to see that. He probably would have had a good laugh on that one. But
he did not.
The guy has to. No, that guy was a grifter.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we had some other questions, Eric. You got some more?
Sure. Well, I was going to say there was a very important one.
Questions?
Yes. I was going to say my favorite PC that I played with, definitely Glum. Glum is clearly for $4.99. Glum is the favorite one.
Yeah, heck yes.
He was pretty useful. He did effective use of Wall of Fog, if I remember, to shield us from arrows that were coming our way. I think also maybe some sort of gaze weapon in another adventure. So Glum has been very useful for a gnome illusionist who I typically malign gnome illusionists and disparage them in my comments. But Eric does a great job, and he dresses very convincingly as a gnome. And
let's see if I can find some of that. I'm going to look that up right now.
Glum is unsurprisingly very morose, so it's really fun to play with him.
Well, you see, like for me, like a gnome illusionist thief. To me, that is like the ideal combination because the two classes kind of play off each other, and you can definitely set yourself up for backstabs or sneak attack or whatever we call it, and in this newfangled D&D they play nowadays. These damn kids.
Yeah.
Oh.
So now, Luke, when you run events like at get conventions and all your, I see you do this LA stuff for all your Hollywood pals. What game system do you run? Do you run 1E, 2E, 5E, 3? I mean, what do you usually run?
1E or 5E. Those are the two. I don't really care for 5th edition. Correction, 3rd edition very much. So 1E and 2E are essentially the same game to me. There's not much difference, so I think you can call them kind of the same. 3rd edition, just it's too much too much like record keeping. For me, it is. It's a lot of work. So I don't. For me, I mean, that's just it wasn't my. I get it that lots of people love it. I don't want to disparage them. To say for me, I don't enjoy it as much. I have played it. I've played Pathfinder, and I've had a good time. It's just maybe not my first choice. And then 5th edition is just so much. It's everyone plays it these days, so it's just the lingua franca. It's what younger people have been introduced to, and it has it's done just an amazing job of expanding the impact of D&D. So it's really hard to argue with that success. The one, if I were going to lay a criticism on 5th edition, I think it's hard to challenge the party because they made healing too easy. So you can have some killing machines out there, man. I put some pretty buff bad guys in these modules that are built for 6th, 7th, 8th level players, player characters, and man, I tell you what, you can knock a guy down, and you just they're 10 hit points. You hit them for like 40 points of damage. They're knocked down to 0, right? So okay, all right, I guess that's kind of how that goes. And then they're doing these death saves things. Well, you don't even get there because somebody can just drop a healing word or whatever it is and stand them back up with a couple of hit points, right? So and then somebody hits them with a polymorph and polymorphs them into a giant gorilla or something like that who has a bunch of hit points, or Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever it is, right? Whatever they've seen, and then they have a whole bunch of hit points. They get drilled down again. You knock them down. Poof! Somebody pops them back up. Another person can hit them with a polymorph. So you get the cycle going. That can be pretty tough. And all it does is create an inflation of creatures, right?
Right. Well, and that actually is the reason why I quit playing MMOs after a while, is because that literally was everything that you did, was to do that whole cycle of big healing. Okay, now let's go through the whole cycle again. All right. Spend your 2 minutes out of combat healing up to go back in for another batch of it. Yeah, no, it was 5e. I've played 2 sessions of 5e, and good groups at cons, pleasant experience. But when you have to hand me a character folder with like 9 pages in it for a 5th level character, and I realized if for me to actually do everything on my character sheet, I'd have to spend a full session learning what was on my character sheet. I was like, not.
Isn't it interesting though?
But not for a convention game.
What is interesting though, Eric, is that now because 5e, you've had this whole group playing 5e, and yes, it's healing. I told you a story before about the kid who came to North Texas, and he was playing 5e and 1e, and I asked, why are you playing 1e if you like 5e? He goes, well, I want to try D&D on the hard level, because he's used to everything being easy in 5e, but you have all these new creators are coming out now, like Kelsey and others, who are saying, I like 5e a lot, but let's make it a little harder. Let's make there's no light spells, or let's make the healing not happen. I think that's really cool because they're keeping the basic framework of 5e, but they're saying, this is just, I want to challenge these people. I want to challenge these characters without having just to have more and more, just inflation, just more giant foes and more spells and more everything. Let's put something in there to make it tough, just to make it tougher for them.
Yeah, I would like to do that as well, and I've had that thought process, like in our D&D, which would be, hey, you want to play 5e as written or whatever? Great, that's your rated G D&D, right? Or PG. So your PG D&D. Now, if you want to up it to R-rated D&D, or maybe put it on hard level or whatever it is, right? Because really, in Dungeons and Dragons, in games I'm running at a convention, I don't include a whole lot of criminal activity. Certainly not drug use. Anything that could be constituted abuse. Any of those sensitive issues, you keep those
Right.
out of there. But gosh, when we watch movies that are cop dramas or whatever, isn't drugs and graft and criminal organizations. Heck, I love The Godfather, right? I mean, there were some
Right.
just
Yeah.
some great bits in there. And to be able to include those sorts of things, it's an adult theme. So maybe you also ratchet up the toughness. Hey, man, you don't get death saves if you go below 0. Game over for you, pal. Right?
Yeah.
And a short rest. Maybe you can do one short rest in adventure between long rests, and maybe you limit the long rest or whatever. There'd have to be some mechanics in there as well, but just make it a little bit tougher, right? You know what I'm saying? Let's
Right.
make it a little because without tension, it's not to punish a player, but
Yeah.
without tension, do you really get drawn into the story? Are you really like, oh my gosh, I have to focus because my character that I've invested so much into, this is life or death. We may not make it out. This character, this could all be down the drain, right? Or the DM's gonna have to do some fancy footwork to figure out,
Right.
Yep.
why they didn't kill you and you're now trapped but stripped of all your goodies and you have to figure out how to escape or whatever the case is, right? It doesn't always
Well,
have.
if you don't have bad guys that are worth fighting, I mean, if Star Wars didn't have Darth Vader, what's the point? I mean, Darth Vader is so freaking evil and so awful that you want the guys to succeed. The same thing with gaming. Eric and I bag on WotC all the time, but I mean, one of the things is that we can't have Dark Sun because there's no more slavery. We're not going to have slavery in our books. Well, slavery, you're not celebrating slavery, you're killing slavers for doing something really evil, and you're releasing slave, which is a really good thing. Why wouldn't that be part of a really kick-ass game? You want your foes to be really bad. You want them to be bad enough that hey, I want to kill these guys. I want to rescue
Right.
the fair maiden or the people that are being kept in slavery. I don't like these guys. And that's, if you lose that aspect of it, then as Eric calls it, Care Bear D&D. You're just you're not really doing anything. You're just kind of, we're going to go around the forest and we're going to fight some goblins and rescue some pixies. But, give it stakes. Give them high stakes.
You need that. And also to conflate the real world with the fantasy world is problematic, right? Slavery exists in the real world. It exists today. And it's not, sure, there was, I think people only seem to think about slavery in the United States of America, which was like a racially tied slavery. Slavery's throughout ancient history, all the way to today, and it's an awful thing to do to another sentient person, right? And it should make you hate them, right? It should make you hate the people who are doing that. I think that's a good motivation. Is to D&D. You're a lot of times it's played by younger people. Don't we want to teach them kind of the idea of, hey, there is evil in the world. You can change that because you are a hero. You can take action, and what you do matters, and you can change the world for the better. I think that's super important to tell people, and to get them to practice that in a consequence-free environment. So maybe they'll stand up in a real-world situation and help avoid some misery and do the right thing in the real world. So by putting training wheels on us or by shielding people from it, I don't think that's doing the right thing. I think we're actually harming some of the good that you can learn through Dungeons and Dragons, and that may be an unpopular opinion, but I mean that's kind of how I see it.
Well, that's listen, Mike and I are not going to disagree. I mean, I've railed about some of that stuff because listen, my niece is 11. I know what she's going through as an 11-year-old. She's a preteen, but she is also the one that will speak the words of wisdom, and she'll be like, I don't understand why they don't allow us to, do X, Y, Z. I go, well, it's dangerous world. She goes, I know the world is dangerous. And she goes, and I'm 11. And if you pretend the world isn't dangerous, then I'm never going to learn that it is. I'm like, who the hell are you? And how are you related to me?
Yeah.
But, because these kids know that a lot of times they're being put in that safe space. And everybody's making sure that, you're not going to skin yourself or you. When we went out as kids, you ran down the street, you skinned yourself. The only trouble you got is you put another hole in your pants.
Oh, I got yelled at. I just bought you those jeans. How dare you rip a hole in
Here's an iron-on patch. We're going to put it on your knee.
Yeah, I had those too.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
after
What
you
happened
take
to that
the
good
pencil
stuff?
off. But that was now. God forbid your kid falls down outside, and you're gonna have that kid being disinfected for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a society that is so afraid to offend or let somebody come into harm. And I understand that. My son's 30. I went through parenting. Yes, especially when you go through certain courses in MIPD, like sex crimes and child abuse.
Oh my God.
You don't want your kid go. I mean, I remember calling up his mother going, "Yeah, when Chris comes home from school, he never leaves the house again without one of us with him at all times." She's like, "What? You won't believe what I just had to go to, and it was like a 5-day course." I was like, "No, he never leaves the house again." But you can't do that. You can't constantly shield. And the thing is that they're shielding adults now in D&D. And
that's what I think drives Eric and I crazy, is the fact that we're all adults here. They're telling us, well, slaves are bad, and so we don't want you fighting slaves. Slavers. I don't understand. We're adults. Let us make our own decisions about what we're going to do in our own game. Yeah, I can understand. Maybe there's some concepts for kids are a little rough to handle, and maybe you don't want that in a kid's game. But if you're, I would think the majority of their audience are teens or higher, and not people under the age of 10.
Well, how about you put just like video games? I mean, I bought a a PS5. Sorry, for my family. At my daughter's insistence, she's like, "If you love me, you'll buy me a PS5." So I got a PS5, and oh my gosh, that they've made such strides. The last thing I had was an Xbox 360, which I thought was pretty cool. Holy smokes, it's like you're watching a movie in some of these games. But The Last of Us video game, pretty rough.
Okay, yeah.
There's some pretty rough concepts in there. Definitely R-rated game, right? That is, it's kind of like a zombies, but instead of like a virus or something infecting you, it's fungus. There's a fungus that takes over bugs and ants, and so it's basically this fungus has figured out how to be in a human body. It takes over their brains and makes them essentially into kind of zombies or whatever.
Right.
So it's that style of game. But oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of really rough, mature content in there. But it's a great game. Red Dead Redemption also deals with a lot of adult games. Beautiful game, well written and well constructed. So maybe put age. Hey, this is a mature game. This is meant for everybody. This is meant for teens, and that would give you an idea. But just guarding people, it doesn't make sense. And allow people to make that choice. I want to have this in my game. I don't want to have this in my game. Nobody's wrong. You're not wrong. Mm-hmm. As long as everybody at the table is prepared and welcoming this stuff, you're good. It's if you spring it on somebody who's not expecting it and doesn't want that, then I agree, you're way out of bounds and you shouldn't do that.
And usually, if it's your home group, you generally know where those boundaries are. Now, I'm excited that one of your upcoming projects is going to be your own setting, because one thing that Wizards of the Coast is not doing is setting material. They're not putting out new settings. They regurgitate old settings, but take the setting part out, like Spelljammer, which is, I don't know what it is, but apparently it wasn't really Spelljammer. But it seems to me that they're doing that because they're afraid of creating a new setting for the fear that they're going to have content that's going to offend somebody. So by avoiding that, so it's the third-party creators that are going to give us the settings, whether it's for 5e, Castles of Crusades, Swords of Wizardry, Live Report, because you're not going to get it from Wizards of the Coast, because it is something that they, even when they try, like Spelljammer,
they got spanked for that. They apparently they didn't they take a race that was from
Star Frontiers?
From Star Frontiers, thank you. Yeah, which was a super fun game, by the way. I play tested. I was fortunate enough that Zeb Cook came over and was running that for my dad and I and Mike Gray, who's just an amazing game designer. Who I think he made like Fortress America and some other games like that for Milton Bradley, but you never knew it because he didn't get credit for it. Just a really nice guy, super fun gentleman. And he played a Duralacite. Just, it was hilarious. It was great. Anyways, some very fun memories on the table at that. But yeah, they took some. I think it was the is it Yazine or something like that?
Yeah,
Was the character?
the
Yazarine, yeah, the flying monkey
Yeah,
guys, yeah.
the flying monkey guys, right? And they added some, which I don't think was in Star Frontier, or some like they hid them.
No,
But then,
wasn't.
I mean, okay, so having a difficult background for people, I mean, okay, we get it, or an origin story for a species. Okay, that's fine. But what happens is people, if you only see the world through a lens of everything is going to be racist or whatever it is, then you're going to interpret any information you get through that lens, and so it looks like somebody's targeting you or trying to make some parallel to the real world, right? So, what are you going to do? And if you're always worried about this, it's going to be very hard to be creative because, like we said, you can't please everybody, and someone is going to find something not intended.
Right, and that. And
to be fair, just if I can, there's people who do write horrible stuff that purposefully denigrates real groups of people in our world, that we exist in the real world. That's crap, and there's no room for that. And I think we can all agree on that. So that does exist, but I think this probably doesn't meet that criteria.
No, and
but the marketplace figures that out. I mean, the marketplace, that's what people don't understand is that, we don't. I know I heard one argument from Watsy getting rid of the OGL was, they want to control their content. They're tired of a lot of bad actors coming in. But look at the last 20 years of gaming. There really hasn't been a lot of bad actors because their stuff doesn't sell. If they create something that's crap, nobody buys it. And so the marketplace takes care of the people that are coming up with the crappy, weird, crazy stuff. Unless it's Lamentations of Flame Princess, but that has a very small select audience. It's obviously not for children. It's an adult, version of the game. It's a horror. It's basically a horror role-playing game more than anything. But other than that, no. If you have somebody that comes up with crap, nobody's going to buy it. The marketplace will figure it out. Trust people. Trust me to not play a game that's offensive. And I think in most cases, 95% of the cases, you'll probably be right there.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that are bad ideas that we don't want to play. Some of them are offensive, some of them are just poorly written or whatever it is. But yeah, let the market work on that sort of stuff. I don't think there's just a giant group of people who are going to buy overtly, whatever, racist, sexist, whatever it is, whatever bad stuff there is out there, because they're celebrating that. That just seems almost insulting.
So small. It's so small, and honestly, they're aiming for a market that probably they already know there. I don't know, 3 dozen potential customers in the world of gaming. They probably all know them personally, who they're aiming it for, and that's the only people they're going to be, marketing them to. There are certain types of games. I remember. I remember the name of it. It was a very overtly Christian RPG that was so Christian. It was almost like going back to the Crusades, and this was like going back like probably about 30 years. I think I remember seeing it in Dragon magazine advertised. I never knew anybody who bought a copy. This is back when you had to, send money to check to somebody's business PO box. Yeah. That wasn't who they were marketing to themselves. That's for sure. They were obviously passionate about it. But there's no market for a game like that because it's not what the masses are looking to play. And I look at certain games that get published, and it's like, yeah, you've got your small niche of a niche, and that's all you're aiming for. That's great. If you're looking to make a game that's going to be racist and offensive, I'm sure you already know what your audience max is at, and you're not going to be selling it through drive-through. You're not going to be selling it in a general chain. You've probably got your own community. You're going to do that anyway.
Maybe you have your own website or something. I don't know because
you're not.
Who's going to be your distributor? I wouldn't want to do that. Heck no. Yeah. Are you kidding me? You don't want to be associated with folks like that.
No, none of us are going to be looking for material like that. They're not converting anybody. They're selling to their own extremely small market. And I'm sure it gives them a good slap in the back and it makes them feel great, but it accomplishes nothing.
Yeah. The internet helps because you can find any kind of wacko fringe group and find the other 6 people on the planet who agree with you and be like, oh yeah, I'm not strange. you said send your check in to like a PO box or something
Yeah.
like that. That made me think of 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. Can you
Oh
imagine
my-
waiting 6 to 8 weeks for
Oh
delivery
yeah.
on something now? It's like, oh my God, no! I want it on Prime Amazon. I need it tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Well, actually, I backed the Far West Kickstarter.
How many
Right
years ago
around
was
when that I got married in November 5th, 2011. I believe I backed it in November of 2011. We are now 11 and a half years later, and it's still I don't know. Supposedly it's in layout.
I mean, I've caught little bits and pieces of that one, but yeah, that just sounds like a nightmare. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
even, just, yeah, at this point, just write it off. I mean, it's been
Oh, it's just the humor behind the absurdity of this project. And it was funny because when I first started covering Kickstarters, and there were games like, I don't know, Power Chords, which was like, I don't know, it took like 7 years to release. I didn't know that. People were like, dude, you got to follow this one. It's about this rock and roll RPG, and it's never going to happen. And these things, finally came out. And you find other, like Mike Nystul's, like, horror trilogy of Kickstarters that were never going to become anything. But then you find ones like Far West, which you're like, this is when there's a website devoted to the number of missed actual release dates over the last 11 years. There's a whole website devoted to listing it and crossing them out.
Oh, that's nice.
You've reached a new level of absurdity. So,
did anyone ever get their pencil dice? That's what I want to know.
I will tell you, Ken Whitman. And by the way, Ken Whitman was trying to get on the show. He was. He actually emailed me his cell phone number. So, Ken, if you're waiting for me to text you, it hasn't happened. It probably won't. So what happened is Ken actually got an embossing machine to emboss those pencils. So, usually when you do a Kickstarter, you do it in order of like somebody placed order number 1. I am going to fulfill order number 1. I asked for one pencil. I got my one pencil. So he fulfilled the one pencil orders with like, I don't know, 20 pencils and sent them out. And then it could say, well, I've sent out like
it's been
10%
partially
of the
fulfilled.
orders.
Yeah.
10% is fulfilled. And then I heard nothing further. And as for like the Knights of the Dinner Table live action series, thanks to somebody who actually sued Ken in small claims court, we got to find out that the when they say it was in a barn and the barn burned down.
Yeah,
it was in a barn and the barn burned down. He was storing hard drives. So I always store hard drives in an unweatherproofed barn.
Yeah, it's a preferred. I think that
preferred storage. Yeah, because they, God forbid. Oh, holy, dude, Eric, you almost made me. I would have done a double take if I had actually had something in my mouth at the time that I saw this. Thank you very much. You just derailed my thoughts, but yes, that's okay. You're allowed to at that price point. I'll echo Luke's assertion that what is great about D&D in regards to censor or change races, characters, settings, etc. A table of friends can do whatever they would like, agree to, and want to do. Drow are the coolest, most dangerous humanoid baddies in my world. Did they pronounce it right?
Drow.
I used to always say drow, and then Mike, you muted.
It's 100% drow.
Mike, you're muted. Can't hear you. You're muted.
I think he was eating crow. He was eating.
I was burping. No, I said
crow.
so. Luke said drow. Luke said drow. So now we have it. It's drow.
Yeah,
it's
well,
official.
My dad said
I'm writing it down.
My dad said drow. That's it. It's drow.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you.
Drow. Eyebrow.
Right, so I here I was trying to be
eyebrows,
special
drow.
There and say it the right way. Because see now somebody's gonna tell me that. Now I used to always call zines zines, and I was told zine was wrong. So I probably I
call it a GIF, and apparently that's wrong. So there you go. I'm just as guilty as the next person.
GIF.
There you
GIF,
go.
I never heard nobody called it GIF back in the day. I'm sorry. They say GIF, but it was always GIF. So
yeah. GIF GIF is the peanut butter. This has a GIF.
Yes.
Okay? This is a GIF. So sorry, we're hitting the important topics this evening.
We really,
yeah, I mean, when you're into hour 2, you start getting to the tough questions, and
we're in hour 3, bro.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're at 2 hours.
It just flew by. So
where have I been?
Oh,
it did.
Put a quarter in me, and I'll keep talking. That's the problem. So, it is getting closer to dinner time. So my wife is probably going to strangle me.
Thank you so much for coming on. We could probably talk another 2 hours, but
it's no issue. I didn't even talk about my plans for GaryCon 2024.
Oh my God! Yes,
yeah, I'm going to be doing. It's my fault. But I'm going to be doing, not for sure yet, but pay attention, watch out for a very small celebration before GaryCon, the weekend before. I'm thinking of doing Founders and Legends Lake Geneva the weekend before, where it'll probably be 300 to 500 people. We'll focus on kind of some of the cultural effects of D&D, how it's changed over the years, and focus on some of the original games besides D&D obviously, but Empire of the Petal Throne, Traveler, etc. In there, and it's not like if you want to play 5th edition, everyone's welcome, right? It's not exclusionary, but you sense the imagination of it. But I'm going to build a D&D competition or tournament or game for a subset, maybe 5 or 6 DMs running 8 people at a table, that's going to take you through each edition of D&D with the same characters through a classic adventure. So I don't want to give too much away, but that would be like a subset of that, which would probably be like something like a little bit of a premium charge to play in that, with some DMs who can run you through OD&D and 5e and everything in between, and kind of take your evolution of characters through a neat scenario. But that's still in development. But that's my idea. I think that would just be a lot of fun. And then of course, GaryCon will happen as per normal for everyone as well. But I figured that does a couple things. It allows someone who maybe couldn't make GaryCon because there's some kind of conflict, they could come to that as well. Yeah. I think it maybe targets some people who really want to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons by spending 10 days in Lake Geneva and doing some stuff. It gives an opportunity for the city of Lake Geneva to do some things on the shoulders between Monday and Wednesday when kind of GaryCon starts, and maybe do some of those bus tours and other things that we're talking about, and tours at the museum, and maybe playing some events at 330 Center Street. So I just think that'd be a really cool way to celebrate, and then go into a big GaryCon as well. So I got my Kickstarter going on now. So please, if you haven't had a chance to look at that, please do.
It's on the screen, folks.
It is
gaxworks.com.
That's right. It's awesome. And we'll have next coming up for the D&D side from Gaxwork and my World of Okram will be like a little setting primer with some maps and a little bit more description of, the peoples and organizations that inhabit Okram. I have some novels that will be coming out in the next year or so with my friend James Hunter. We're going to write some novels based in Okram. I've been working with Matt Everhart on a game called Strange and Grim, which is it's inspired by the interwar period of Earth, but it takes place on Baynor, which is a fictional realm. And it essentially, if you think of maybe Arcane mixed with the Rocketeer or the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, meet Sucker Punch, that kind of gives you an idea with a sprinkling of Cthulhu over the top. And it's using the Everyday Heroes rule system from my friends at Evil Genius Games, which Jeff Grubb worked on as well. Great guy, was at GaryCon this last year. So that should be coming out, kickstarting that sometime in the fall. I'm really excited about that. We do some fun stuff with kind of the idea of hit points. So we could delve into that a little bit. I mean, hit points, it's kind of go back and forth. You guys are old school, so you probably know what do hit points represent.
Absolutely nothing. For player characters, it really is generic fantastical luck. For your elephant, it is technically how big it is, how much damage it can take, kind of, sort of.
Right. So I think my dad described it someplace. I don't know. I've just heard him say it when I was a kid. Essentially, if you're a boxer, you are trained to slip punches, limit damage, right? Dodge, avoid. It's the same thing as when you're a fighter in D&D and you have a lot of hit points, right? It's not that you're taking an axe, it's chopping into your bicep and your bicep is, cut in half or whatever.
Tis but a flesh wound.
Right. It's not happening. You're not leaving limbs behind it. It's, hey, wow, that was a narrow miss, or thank God I deflected that at the last second, or whatever it was, right? And that depletes your hit points, right? But that's not communicated very well and effectively in hit points, because at some point, the last few hit points that you have are really you getting run through and perishing, right? That's what that's about. So to kind of combat that, we thought, well, what could we do? Well, how about we have edge points that allow you spend some edge, and you can make your armor class, higher. You can, whatever, you deflect something, whatever it is. So you have edge points, and then there's a core amount of health. And when you lose those health, you take wounds, and then maybe it's a light wound, a moderate wound, or a severe wound. And those basically have effects, kind of like exhaustion ranks would have effect on you, where you end up with some disadvantage on things, or maybe you get disadvantage on everything, or half movement, etc. Right? That's more like physical, wounds on your body. You can't just walk this off. You're probably going to need some medical treatment, right, of some kind. It moderate and severe, it could even take a lot more time to heal. And then we thought, well, edge could be a lot of fun if you couldn't only use it defensively. What if you could spend your edge, right? Because what makes you different than just everybody else is that you have an edge, right? Through your experience. How about you could spend some edge to, instead of, you could make, hey, I'm going to get advantage on my attack, or I'm going to do a bonus here. So we've basically built an edge economy. So you may go, where do you want to spend your edge? Are you gonna reserve some as hit points to spend, or whatever it is? Are you going to use it to make some critical attacks that are going to get you where you need to go? Are you going to spend it to help you resolve some some conundrum, or use some, get an advantage on a skill roll? And also, we don't, I'm not a huge fan of unlimited short rests. So you only get one short rest between long rests. So there's no, we're going to chill out for an hour here and refresh all of our, refresh our edge points, or, roll our recovery dice and this sort of stuff, because it's basically a fifth edition mechanic. So I think it makes it a little bit more gritty, limits it, but still allows your player characters to more flexibility in how to use their powers. So I like that, and that's just one of the features with a Strange and Grim. So I'm kind of excited about that that's coming up. So there you go. That's what's coming up.
In other words, we got to bring you back when this stuff is starting to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'll have to come back and talk again. So I can do this. I can do this for hours, guys. So no problem.
Well, Mike can't, because Mike's got to go to the airport. You can't.
Yeah, my wife just called. She's going to she's here at the airport, so she's back for her trip. So I'm gonna.
Oh, you better go pick her up.
Yeah, okay. She's 5 minutes away. She said she's fine for 5 minutes or so. But I just want to be able to say goodbye to you, and thanks for coming on, Luke. Yes. We always love having you on. We probably need to have you on sooner than a year. Let's do it.
We'll do it
summer, maybe after the summer sometime. So
sounds good. Definitely. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everybody, especially Eric. You're too generous. And you spell your name the right way with a K. Good, strong spelling. Folks, be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. Tomorrow night, live stream at 8 p.m., the Random Party Generator. It's going to be interesting. We can't shut up Rob Connolly. Trust us, we try. Rob will be on a roll. Don't know about what. Joe, everybody else, we'll all be there. Saturday, another live stream, Gamers Health. I'm not sure if we're going to bring a special guest in this week. I might be tired of special guests. I might need a break. But we are going to be continuing to discuss heart health and things related to that. And other than that, thank you all. God bless.
Later, everybody. Later, Luke.
See you later.